Night, the round moon was hanging high and stars filled the sky. However, within the river of stars, there were 9 colored lights lingering amongst them, and they were especially dazzling. Abnormal signs appear in the sky, which means a divine body will descend. On the summit of the imperial city in the 9 provinces, an old man in golden clothes stood with his hand behind his back, and he was looking up into the night sky. Behind him were tens of thousands of imperial city experts. All of them were half-kneeled, as if waiting for some command. BZZ**. Suddenly, the lights condensed and formed into 9 colored lightning. It came striking down from above the river of stars in the heavens. At that instant, the black night became a white day. Even before the strike of the lightning, the ground was already rumbling and fiercely trembling. But that 9-colored lightning, the moment it collided with the land, it did not do any terrifying damage. Rather, it completely disappeared. At the same time, the world was enveloped by the night once again. The originally bright night sky darkened quite a bit, as if some important essence was removed, and the former center days were restored. The old man's eyes were abnormally bright, and his excited body was even trembling. He pointed towards the location in which the lightning had landed. Within the borders of the Azure province, bring all the infants that were born tonight back to the imperial city. Yes, sir. The thunder-like response resonated past the horizon, and tens of thousands imperial city experts headed towards the Azure province. They swore to look for the divine body and give it to the imperial court for use. Time passed. 5 years elapsed with a blink, and although people still remembered the frightening scene that year, no one knew the actions of the imperial court. Within the borders of the Azure province of the 9 provinces, amongst the countless of schools, the Azure Dragon School was one of them. Today, once again, it was the annual recruitment of disciples for the Azure Dragon School. There were oceans of people outside of the school. Every time, the busiest people were the outer court disciples. All the responsibilities of the admittance for the school were all pushed onto their heads. Outer court disciples. They were the ones that did the hard and thankless tasks. Not only were their position lowest in the school, they were even looked down upon by outsiders. The reason was very simple. If they were an outer court disciple, it meant that their aptitude was horrible, and in their entire life, it would be very hard for them to have any big achievements, so naturally, they were despised upon. "Oi, what's with this attitude? Do you know who I am?" A lady who wore gorgeous clothes had a boy with her as she pointed and loudly yelled at a young man. "I am very sorry. It is already late now and the school will close soon. Please come back tomorrow." The young man's delicate face was still young and tender, but between his eyebrows he had a bit of heroic spirit. He was called Chu Feng. He was 15 this year, and he was one of the tens of thousands of outer court disciples in the Azure Dragon School. Although he was an outer court disciple, Chu Feng was different from all the others. He did not feel inferior to others, and he did not degrade himself. He did not feel afraid or scared while treating others, and he was very calm. "Come back tomorrow. You think I'm an idiot? These are the mountains. Where are you even going to let us sleep? You must arrange a place of residence for me, or else I'll go find your elders." For reasoning, the lady did not listen and did not care. She even grabbed onto Chu Feng's clothes. "Chu Feng, have you met with trouble?" But just at that time, a sweet voice could be heard. Looking at that direction, a young female who wore purple was walking over. Although there was a faint smile on her mouth, her eyes were fierce and they tightly stared at the lady. As she saw the young female, the color of the lady's face instantly changed, and a strong expression of fear gushed out. It was not because of anything else. It was just because the young female was wearing the purple robe, and that was a mark of the inner disciples. The lady hiddenly cursed. She originally thought she could use her status to make things difficult for the young man in front of her. It's nothing. I was just inquiring some things from him," the lady explained while smiling. The young female glared at her and only said one word, "Scram." At that instant, the lady's body couldn't help but tremble, and her face was already ashen. But she did not hesitate at all. She pulled the boy and quickly left, and under the panic she even tripped, which made her look very rough. Seeing that, Chu Feng helplessly shook his head and said politely to the young female next to him, "Thank you very much, Chu Iwei." "No, need to be so polite, we're family, right?" Chu Iwei was a bit displeased. She was correct. They were indeed family. They came from the same family, Chu. Chu Iwei was Chu Feng's cousin, from Chu Feng's father's brother line, and she was only 1 year older than Chu Feng. However, Chu Iwei already passed the inner disciple exam 3 years ago and became an inner disciple. She was now in the 4th level of the spirit realm. "We need to follow the school rules," Chu Feng said with a brilliant smile. TN. What he meant by following the school rules was being respectful to elders. As inner court disciples, outer court disciples looking at Chu Feng behaving like that, Chu Iwei's heart ached. "Chu Feng, are you still not going to participate in this year's inner disciple exam? Or is it that you still haven't reached the 3rd level of the spirit realm?" Chu Feng did not respond, and a faint smile still hung on his face. No one knew what he meant. Seeing that, Chu Iwei took off a bag from her waist and put it in Chu Feng's hands. "Refine it. Perhaps it'll help you break through the 3rd level." Chu Feng opened the bag, and instantly, strong spiritual energy was emitted from it. A bright, sparkling, transparent Saint Spirit grass that was the size of a finger laid within. "Chu Iwei, this is too precious, I can't take it." Chu Feng hurriedly returned it back to Chu Iwei. Saint Spirit grass. It was like a panacea for martial training, and it was extremely precious. It had endless usefulness for those within the spirit realm. To increase their training speed, the Chu family would supplement 1 Saint Spirit grass to the Chu family members every year. Chu Iwei was also supplemented by the family, but she didn't use it and gave it to Chu Feng. It really moved Chu Feng, so he really couldn't accept it. "When I say I give it to you, you should take it. You are my little brother after all." Chu Iwei was slightly irritated. "Oh, when were you so generous and even started to give Saint Spirit grasses to people? Look, I am your little brother as well, and coincidentally, I will almost have a breakthrough into 4th level of the spirit realm. How about you give the Saint Spirit grass to me?" A young man around the age of Chu Feng walked over, and he was also wearing clothes of the inner court disciples. He was called Chu Zhen, and he was also from the Chu family. 5 years ago, he entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as Chu Feng. However, he became an inner disciple 2 years ago. "Chu Zhen, you've already broke past the 3rd level of the spirit realm and successfully condensed spiritual energy. Even if you don't have this Saint Spirit grass, you can rank up quickly. But Chu Feng has not condensed spiritual energy yet, so this Saint Spirit grass is more important to him." Chu Iwei forcibly put the Saint Spirit grass into Chu Feng's hands. "Yep, you are correct, but sadly he doesn't want it." Chu Zhen spread his hands open and sneered. "Who said that I didn't want it?" But then, Chu Feng lightly smiled and unrestrainedly put the Saint Spirit grass in his pocket before saying, "Chu Iwei, I will borrow this Saint Spirit grass. On a later date I will return them back twofold." Okay. Seeing that Chu Feng accepted it, Chu Iwei was already happy, so she just randomly responded and didn't care whether Chu Feng would return it back or not. "If you're taking it, then why return it? Giving you this Saint Spirit grass for you to use is such a waste." Chu Zhen's face had a really ugly look on it. Chu Feng just smiled and ignored him. He then said to Chu Iwei, "I will participate in this year's inner disciple exam. HMPHU. If you can pass the inner disciple exam, I'll give this year's supplemented Saint Spirit grass to you." Chu Zhen looked at Chu Feng with contempt. "Is that true?" Chu Feng didn't really believe it. "Chu Iwei will be the witness. But what if you can't pass it? Then the Saint Spirit grass I get this year will belong to you." Leaving that sentence behind, Chu Feng continued to throw himself into the work of outer court disciples. "Chu Zhen, we are family. Why do you always need to make things so hard for Chu Feng?" Chu Iwei looked at Chu Zhen with annoyance. "Family. Chu Iwei, you should know that Chu Feng isn't part of our Chu family. After entering the school for 5 years, he still hasn't passed the inner disciple exam. He is absolutely the disgrace of our Chu family. In the entire Chu family, which one likes him. Only you treat him nicely, and you even give your own Saint Spirit grass to him for use. Chu Jin really did not understand. You are truly stupid. Chu Iwei was a bit angry, and after glaring at him for a moment, she walked away. On the other hand, Chu Jin smiled. He really was happy. Although he didn't get Chu Iwei's Saint Spirit grass, he knew that this year, Chu Feng's Saint Spirit grass would certainly be his. A bit into the night, in the resting area for the outer court disciples, it was complete darkness. After being busy for the entire day, everyone was very tired and they slept very early. Only Chu Feng's room was still lit up by light. He sat on the front of the bed, took out the Saint Spirit grass that Chu Iwei gave him and muttered, "I hope this Saint Spirit grass can make you full." After saying that, Chu Feng closed both his eyes, clamped the Saint Spirit grass between both his palms and did a strange hand seal. At that instant, the spiritual energy inside the Saint Spirit grass started to enter Chu Feng's body through his palm, and it converged into his dantian. Tien. Dantian. At the same time, chewing sounds came from Chu Feng's dantian, as if something was having a meal. If you looked through his skin, you would discover in the deep part of Chu Feng's dantian, a lump of lightning was occupying there. That lump of lightning had 9 colors, and every color was like a huge lightning beast. It emitted a terrifying aura that did not belong to this world. Chu Feng wasn't really from the Chu family. He was an adopted son by Chu Yuan, the 5th oldest in the Chu family. That caused Chu Feng to be pushed aside and to be humiliated at a small age. If it wasn't for Chu Yuan's protection, he would have already been kicked out of the Chu family. Because of that, Chu Feng was very thankful towards Chu Yuan and swore to become the pride of Chu Yuan and to win back some honor. 5 years ago, Chu Feng was exactly 10 years old, and it was the best age to train in the martial arts. The him at that time had many expectations for training, because he felt that the time to prove himself had arrived. However, he never would have thought after entering the Azure Dragon School for 1 month, lightning would strike his body and enter his dantian. At first, Chu Feng even thought it was good luck, because when he started training, his speed of improvement was astonishing. In 2 short months, he arrived at the 2nd level of the spirit realm. That speed was completely abnormal, and because of that, Chu Feng didn't dare to tell it to anyone, so he hid his strength and continued training. But the good scene did not last long. Just as Chu Feng thought he became a genius, change happened within his body. Because of that change, it made it so his cultivation stopped and did not move forward, and he was labeled to have the most horrible talent of a lifetime. *BZZ** at that time, the Saint Spirit grass in Chu Feng's hands was being refined and absorbed by his dantian. His refining speed was extremely fast, and it exceeded common sense. Normally, with Chu Feng's strength, it would take at least 1 month to refine the Saint Spirit grass. However, looking at it now, it was already halfway refined just after a short while, and Chu Feng's dantian that felt like a never-ending cave also had a feeling of being full. *BZZ** Suddenly, light floated over Chu Feng's hand, and the other half of the Saint Spirit grass instantly disappeared. Also, at the same time, everything changed in Chu Feng's dantian. The 9 lightning beasts interwove with each other. It was hurriedly moving, and it was actually condensing. Finally, it turned into a pill-like object. After the pill formed itself, endless spiritual energy surged out from it like a tide washing Chu Feng's body. Very soonly, it permeated through his entire body. *Whoosh*. Chu Feng suddenly opened his eyes, and there were traces of lightning in them. An indescribable expression hung on his face. I succeeded. After 5 years, I finally succeeded. Chu Feng was incomparably joyful. He jumped down from the bed, and as he walked around, he sized up his body. In the journey of martial cultivation, the known realms were the following: Spirit, Origin, Profound, and Heaven. Those were the 4 big realms, and every realm was divided into 9 levels. The first level of the spirit realm, the main point of it was to train the physical body with special methods, and to increase strength. But after reaching the second level of the spirit realm, one must use ways to condense spiritual energy. Only people who successfully condensed their spiritual energy in their dancing could truly start their path in martial cultivation. Chu Feng's body changed, and it made it unable to condense spiritual energy. The divine lightning in his dancing were like 9 hungry wild beasts. The spiritual energy that Chu Feng condensed would always be engulfed by that divine lightning. But he didn't give up. It was because he found out that, although the divine lightning did engulf his spiritual energy, there was a limit. As long as he kept on providing spiritual energy towards his dancing, he could fill it up one day. And today, he finally succeeded. This is a really strong feeling. Endless amounts of spiritual energy is surging into my body, as though it was going to break through my body. This feeling was inconceivable to Chu Feng. He never would have thought that the divine lightning would directly condense into a pill and occupy a place in the dancing. The spiritual energy that the divine lightning was giving off was very dense, and it was beyond imagination. He knew that even with his 5 years of non-stop cultivation, he could not condense such strong spiritual energy. The reason why he could was because of that divine lightning. BZZ*, but just at that time, Chu Feng's body suddenly became stiff, and his expression also changed greatly. The divine lightning was changing. His power instantly increased by several times, and he suddenly broke through again and stepped into the 4th level of the spirit realm. Have the hard times stopped and the good times come? Chu Feng tightly clenched his fist, and he felt that the explosive power in his body was worth his 5 years of suffering. Suddenly, continuously breaking through 2 levels, the unexplainable method of becoming strong finally returned. He used a severe gaze to look towards the direction of the inner court and muttered, "Chu Zhen, I'll be taking your Saint Spirit grass." The Azure Dragon School's disciple recruitment only happened once a year, and every time it lasted for 10 days. After 10 days, the annual inner disciple exam would start. This time, Chu Feng, who had been silent for 5 years, would also participate. The exam location was a huge underground palace. Within the main hall of the underground palace, the number of people were like oceans and mountains, and there were most likely over 10,000 people. Most of the people there were at the 3rd level of the spirit realm, because everyone knew that the inner disciple exam required one to be at least in the 3rd level to pass. However, there was also a small portion of disciples at the 2nd level, and they wanted to try to pass it within the confusion. There were people like that every year, but most of them ended with failures. The thing worth mentioning, though, was that there were also a small portion of 4th levels there. They were not mediocre people who trained slow, and in fact, some of them were even geniuses. They intentionally waited until they were at the 4th level of the spirit realm before participating in the inner disciple exam. The reason? For the reward. When one reached the 3rd level, they could start training martial skills. Martial skills were very strong attacking methods. Not only could they thoroughly display strength, they could also make people gain power that exceeded the limits of their body. Because of that, martial skills were very precious, and even the rich and powerful families that has been existing for generations didn't have them. That was the reason why all sorts of family had to send their young generations into various schools for cultivation. In every school, there were a large amount of martial skills, and within the Azure Dragon School, as long as you become an inner court disciple, you could start cultivating the martial skills. Martial skills were also divided into ranks, and from the weakest to the strongest, there were 9 ranks. Within the inner court, the best martial skill book was only a rank 3 one, but within the annual inner disciple exam, the first person to pass it would get a rank 4 martial skill book. That was why those people would rather train in the outer court and not enter the inner court. It was for the rank 4 martial skill book. Look, isn't that Yang Tianyu? Wah, it really is him. He's already at the 4th level of the spirit rank by the age of 13. It seems like first place in this exam will be him. In the ocean of people, one young man grabbed people's attention. To be more precise, it was a boy. There were dozens of thousands of disciples in the outer court, and most of them were unknown characters. However, the focal figures that people paid attention to were mostly geniuses, in which this Yang Tianyu was one of them. That may not be so. No matter how much aptitude Yang Tianyu has, he is, at the end, a child. It would be very hard for him to get first. There are many unknown talents in Azure Dragon School, and sometimes geniuses may not be able to beat the mediocre. For example, that Duan Yuxuan. Another outer court disciple pointed with his fingers at a cold young man. That person was called Duan Yuxuan. He has been in the Azure Dragon School for 6 years, and he was also originally an unknown character. But a few months ago, he unexpectedly defeated an inner disciple who was in the 4th level of the spirit realm. Because of that, his name was widespread and he became the focal character of the outer court. Silence. Suddenly, a loud and clear sound echoed. Looking at the source, everyone couldn't help but stare blankly. They saw a dozen or so silhouettes appear on the high platform in the hall. Most of them were aged, old people, and they were the outer court elders. But not only was the leader young, she was even a beautiful female. The female was wearing a red, skin-tight dress, and it outlined her alluring curves. Especially under the dress, there were 2 straight, snow-white legs, and it could be said that they were perfect. Not only was her body attractive, her appearance was also extremely lovely. With round eyes, red lips, and an oval face, it was just like a fox face. She was the famous beauty elder of Azure Dragon School, Su Ro. Su Ro was a top-class character. She entered the Azure Dragon School at the age of 10, entered the inner court at the age of 12, and became a core disciple at the age of 15. But just as everyone were optimistic and thought that she would become Azure Dragon School's #1 disciple, she suddenly became an elder. No one had the inside information about this change, and up to today, it was still a mystery, and it was discussed enthusiastically by people. Why it's Su Ro? Why isn't she supposed to be an elder in the inner court? Why did she come to the outer court? With the appearance of Su Ro, all of the male disciples opened their mouths and some even drooled. The outer court disciples were very young. Most of them were teenagers and some were even children. To them at their age, a mature female like Su Ro had the most charm. Su Ro didn't have the air of the elders as she charmingly smiled towards the crowd and said gently, "The exam rules are very simple. Enter the gate behind me and come out from the other gate. With that, you pass the exam. The only difference is that the first person to pass will get a rank 4 skill book. You can't even get this in the inner courts. But something worth mentioning is that the person who is first this year will get another special reward. Depending on one's perspective, this reward could be even more precious than the previous one. After saying that, Su Ro intentionally lengthened the intonation. The enchanting air filled the entire hall. What would it be? Someone asked curiously. Elder Su Ro is giving her body. Some were even shameless and had lewd thoughts. Although Su Ro was an elder, she was only 20 years old. Compared to the old antiques, she was a lot more easygoing. Because of that, a lot of people didn't worry at all when they talked like that. Su Ro only smiled charmingly in response to the guesses of the crowd. She raised 5 slim fingers, then said, 5 Saint Spirit grasses. What? 5 Saint Spirit grasses? I didn't hear wrong, did I? The reward are Saint Spirit grasses and 5. With those words, the main hall went into chaos and everyone could not remain calm. Saint Spirit grasses were extremely precious, and even the Chu family could only give each person 1 per year. To ordinary people, Saint Spirit grasses were priceless treasures, and some had not even seen it before. Seeing that the Azure Dragon School could take out 5 of them, it was a huge temptation to the outer court disciples. But for most of the people, they could only dream about it because they knew that they had no chance in getting those Saint Spirit grasses. However, to the disciples who were aiming to be the first, they were all eager to give it a try, and they got even more excited. Su Ro nodded with satisfaction as she saw the high spirits of the disciples. Then she waved her hand. Behind her, rumbling noises came. The gate that was dozens of feet tall slowly opened. What are you waiting for? Don't want to pass the exam. Su Rose smiled beautifully as she looked at the disciples who were staring blankly. Go tilde tilde tilde. At that moment, endless cheers resonated, and the tens of thousands outer court disciples were like wild horses who got rid of its reins. As they all rushed towards the huge gate, Chu Feng went along with the flow of people and continued forward. Finally, they entered a deep cave. The cave was very vast, but it was very dark in there. The field of vision was extremely low, and people knew the danger of traps that could be triggered at any moment. Go. For the rank 4 skill, for the 5 Saint Spirit grasses, go tilde tilde tilde. But of course, there were some people that cared about money and didn't care about their life. They knew that there was danger, but they still went ahead by themselves and didn't even look back. There was even quite a few of people who were like that. Asterisk whoosh 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 asterisk, but after going ahead for 100 meters, whooshing sounds came in front and endless amounts of silver needles were shot out from the wall, and they shot towards the crowds as if it was rain. Ah tilde tilde tilde. Wah tilde tilde tilde. In an instant, all sorts of cries echoed. The disciples that rushed in front were caught off guard, and over half of them fell. Regardless, people still continued forward and they did not have any traces of retreating. They madly ran deeper into the cave. Although the silver needle was strong, it wouldn't kill, and they knew that. After all, it was only a mechanism, and to the people at the 3rd level of the spirit realm, they could dodge it as long as they were careful. As they continued to go in deeper, the silver needles also got denser and denser, and the people that they hit were usually caught off guard. In situations like those, the crowds quickly distanced themselves. The people who were running at the front were no longer people who came hoping they would pass in the confusion. They were strong people such as Yang Tianyu and Duan Yuxuan. It had to be mentioned that those people were indeed not ordinary. As they walked in the storm like needles, they needed to be extremely careful, but it was as though they were leveling the ground with their shoes, and it didn't look like they were running through mechanisms at all. They were simply people in a running race. Chu Feng was always behind them in the spirit realm army that consisted of people at the 3rd level. He did that for 2 reasons. Firstly, he didn't want to stand out. Secondly, his situation was very special, and he didn't want to show his true strength too early. That was why he was waiting for a chance where he could surpass everyone when no one was looking. Duan Yuxuan, you're already so old, yet you can't even win a child like me in a race. Don't you think it's a bit embarrassing? HMPH, little brat, in the journey of martial cultivation, age doesn't matter. Only strength does. If you want to boast, then do that after you win. Let us travel through time a bit. There were only 2 shadows left in the very front. They were Duan Yuxuan and Yang Tianyu. Both of them were at the 4th level of the spirit realm. One of them had outstanding talent, the other had plenty of experience. The 2 of them were fairly even, and the tension between them got stronger and stronger. It was because they knew that their largest competition was each other. As long as they win over their opponent, the prize for being first would belong to them. Suddenly, a breeze of wind came from the front. The 2 of them were surprised as they looked closely, and they couldn't help but slow down their paces. It was because dense fog appeared in front of them. The cave was already dark, and with the fog it meant that their vision would be even poorer. With that, it also greatly increased the difficulty of dodging the mechanisms. Even if it was them, they needed to treat it carefully. Good chance. Just as everyone was slowing down, Chu Feng secretly rejoiced. He went forward in huge strides, and with a whoosh, his entire body was like an arrow leaving a bow as he flew forward. Asterisk whoosh asterisk. At that time, Duan Yuxuan was concentrating on dodging the silver needles. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed past him. Without giving any time for him to react, that person disappeared once again. Did I imagine it? With that, it made Duan Yuxuan feel quite a bit of shock. He thought it was Yang Tianyu at the start, but he noticed that Yang Tianyu was not far behind him. Then he was distracted with his thoughts. The person who successfully left everyone behind, Chu Feng, didn't care about them that much as he increased his speed to the maximum. After that long running, he didn't feel any fatigue. The The spiritual energy within his body was endless to take, and it continuously surged from his dantian. Not only that, his speed and strength, hearing and vision power all surpassed the people who were at the same level than him. At least it greatly surpassed Duan Yuxuan and Yang Tian Yu. Chu Feng wasn't too surprised at that chance because it was something special about him. He already seen this specialness 5 years ago. From now on, his specialness returned, and it gave him incomparable self-confidence because there was no one who could call themselves a genius in front of him anymore. As he ran with flying speed, Chu Feng finally left the mechanism stage, exited the dark cave, and arrived in the middle of a wide hall. At the end of the hall there was a tall platform made out of stone. On top of the stone, there were several items. It was the rank 4 martial skill book and the 5 spirit saint grasses. Seeing those things, Chu Feng was a bit emotional. However, he did not rush ahead. Rather, he looked at the stone doors on the side of the hall. So behind those are the legendary fierce beasts. Chu Feng's mouth curved up in expectation. He knew that this exam just only started. The creatures that he was going to face were terrifying, bloodthirsty, ruthless creatures, called fierce beasts. Elder Su Ro, look, this is too astonishing. I've been guarding here for so many years, but this really is the first time that I've seen a disciple that passed through with such a speed. Within a mysterious stone room in the underground palace, an old elder was staring at a disordered stone, and astonishment filled his gaze. That was not a normal stone. It was a mechanism within the underground palace. The stone only disordered itself after a mechanism got triggered. Looking at it, the entire stone was disordered, which only meant one thing. Someone already passed the mechanism stage. The fastest person to clear the mechanism stage took 2 hours from the past examinations. But currently, only 1 hour had passed. This change grabbed everyone's attention. The dozen or so elders in the stone room all gathered around, and they were all very startled. It seems that there's an interesting character within the outer court disciples this year. Su Ro also gathered over, and as she looked at the disordered stone, she nodded with satisfaction. Since it's like this, we can't let him pass so easily. Let me make it more interesting. After saying that, she looked above the stone. There were 3 round stones embedded in the wall. Suddenly she smiled strangely and hit the 3 stones with 3 bangs. Don't touch it. Seeing that, all of the elders there were alarmed, but it was too late. At that time all 3 stones were already pressed by Su Ro. What, didn't you tell me that these stones would release the fierce beasts? Looking at the elders in panic, Su Ro also felt that something was wrong. Those 3 stones do indeed release the fierce beasts, but they cannot be pressed at the same time. If they are pressed at the same time, they will release all the imprisoned fierce beasts at the same time. That would be 30 rank 2s, 9 rank 3s, and 1 rank 4. After saying that, Elder Li's face was already pale, and his voice was trembling a bit. The elders that guarded there understood the fierce beasts very clearly. They were ruthless and terrifying creatures, and they were many times stronger than the people who were at the same level. Seeing so many fierce beasts being released at the same time, a round of slaughter could not be avoided. To think of the tens of thousands of disciples in the underground palace being slaughtered by the fierce beasts was not a pleasant thought. Why did you not remind me earlier? At that time, Su Ro's face also changed greatly. Her body rose and became the wind. When the stone doors opened, she already disappeared. Elder Li, what should we do? Everyone's gazes landed on this aged elder. What else can we do? Hurry and go help. Elder Li bellowed angrily and rushed out. Chu Feng had heard of the infamous fierce beasts. They were a type of creature that could cultivate. They were divided into 9 ranks according to their strength, and they corresponded to the 9 levels of the martial cultivators in the spirit realm. However, from rumors, the strength of a rank 3 fierce beast was far stronger than a martial cultivator who was in the 3rd level of the spirit realm, and rank 3 fierce beasts could even be compared to cultivators at the 4th level of the spirit realm. That was why even if it was Chu Feng, he didn't dare to be arrogant. He knew that there was a mechanism in the main hall, and when it was triggered, the fierce beasts would appear. Asterisk bang asterisk suddenly, a heavy noise resounded, and the stone doors that locked the fierce beasts started to open. Strange, I didn't even enter the main hall. Why did the stone doors open? Chu Feng was astonished. Asterisk bang 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 bang. Asterisk but quickly after, the 40 stone doors at the side of the main hall all opened. That completely stunned Chu Feng. It was because in the darkness behind those stone doors, pairs after pairs of blood-red eyes opened, and a heavy bloodlust filled the entire main hall. Damn, this isn't a joke, is it? Chu Feng cursed. He clearly heard that in the last round of every exam, there would be one fierce beast. But what was this situation? Tilde. Chu Feng didn't have much time to think about it too much because in front of his eyes, densely packed shadows leaped out from the stone doors and entered the main hall. He could clearly see that the shape of those creatures were similar to tigers, but double their sizes. Their entire body was jet black, and you could see their blade-like claws and ivory, as well as their pairs of blood-red eyes. There were a total of 40 fierce beasts, and since their appearances were not too different, they should be of the same kind. But upon closer inspection, Chu Feng found out that there were strange lines on their forehead. Clearly, it was the mark of their rank. Just at that time, one of the fierce beasts growled and cast its gaze towards the high platform in the deeper parts of the main hall. Simultaneously, the gazes of all the fierce beasts were cast towards the high platform, and they started to drool. Damn you robbers! Seeing that, Chu Feng was angered. How could he let these fierce beasts take the precious treasures? With a curse, he rushed towards the platform. Just as Chu Feng entered the main hall, it quickly attracted the attention of the fierce beasts. That was quite good for him. A total of 40 fierce beasts all concurrently gave up on the Saint Spirit grasses, and they all surrounded Chu Feng and attacked him. It was as if to them, the blood and flesh of humans was more attractive than some spiritual medicine. Move! One rank 2 fierce beast attacked head-on, but with a punch from Chu Feng he blew off its head. It was unable to even survive a single strike. However, also at the same time, quite a few fierce beasts surrounded him and attacked. The terrifying killing intent was enough to make one's entire body tremble. But Chu Feng did not panic. He was as vigorous as a monkey, jumping left and right as he went back and forth within the crowd of fierce beasts. Every time he attacked, there was at least one fierce beast that died. At that time and moment, compared to the cruel fierce beasts, Chu Feng was an even scarier monster. Every part of his body was like an indestructible sharp weapon. Despite the rough skin and thick flesh of the fierce beasts, they could not withstand a strike from Chu Feng. At that moment, Chu Feng could feel that not only was the endless spiritual energy surging in his body, there was also the 9-colored divine lightning that he loved and hated. It was this divine lightning who gave him such strong power and forged a perfect body for him. Just as Chu Feng was killing furiously, a sharp growl came from behind. When he turned around to look, he couldn't help but be surprised. The sharp claws of a huge fierce beast was heading towards his head. That huge claw was different from the others, as it was quite a bit stronger than the other fierce beasts. If he got caught in it, his brain would certainly shatter. Whoosh! Chu Feng reflexively jumped back as he attempted to dodge the huge claw, but the claw's speed was really too fast. Although Chu Feng's brain dodged the damage, the claws still landed on Chu Feng's chest. 5 bloody wounds were torn into his chest, and the fatal pain made Chu Feng cry out loud. I will tear you apart. Other than feeling the pain, Chu Feng was even more angry. He already saw that there were 4 lines on the forehead of the fierce beast that attacked him, indicating that it was a rank 4 fierce beast. If he was some other person, then without a doubt, that person would turn around and run. Who cared if they were in the same level of cultivation? The power of the fierce beast would undoubtedly be stronger than the humans. But not only did Chu Feng not escape, He even crazily pounced towards that fierce beast. The movement, which had no care of his life, made even the unintelligent fierce beast hesitate subconsciously. Asterisk clang asterisk as the fierce beast hesitated. Chu Feng solidly landed a punch on its forehead, but there wasn't the explosion of blood as expected. Rather, there was a loud sound, as if steel and iron collided. Even Chu Feng felt a wave of achiness from his fist, and it was as though the punch didn't land on the head of the fierce beast, but rather landed on a copper and iron wall. Chu Feng's punch was no small matter. The fierce beast wailed, and it even backed off a few steps. It was obvious that it also felt the pain. Die for me. Seeing that his attacks had some effect, Chu Feng didn't hold back anymore. Swinging his arms, the after images of the punches filled the air, flew in all directions, and his heavy fists were like a storm. They continuously punched the body of the fierce beast. It had to be mentioned that Chu Feng's exploding strength was too strong. Under the insane attacks, the fierce beast that was a few times larger than him was pushed back. The other fierce beasts that wanted to launch a surprise attack on him also undoubtedly received a punch and got killed just like that. At the end, all 40 fierce beasts were completely killed by Chu Feng. Large amounts of bodies and heads were in strange areas, and their death were extremely wretched. The body of the rank 4 fierce beast was still intact. However, its huge brain was deflated by Chu Feng as it was alive. Who? The current Chu Feng was standing in a pool of blood, and he was deeply gasping for air. After that bloodbath, more frightening wounds appeared on his body, but they weren't enough to kill him. Other than the attack of the rank 4 fierce beast, the wounds caused from all the others were only simple bruises, and they didn't even scratch him. How strong is this fearful body? It was a question that Chu Feng asked himself. Compared to those fierce beasts, he felt that he had steel for tendons and iron for bones. That body exceeded the limits of humans, and once again he recognized his specialness. After looking around with his eyes, Chu Feng leaped on the tall platform. Without even looking at them, he took the martial skill book and the Saint Spirit grasses. After doing that, Chu Feng didn't plan to open the huge closed door. He went back towards the direction in which he came from and re-entered the mechanism stage. Before Chu Feng left for long, within the stone room that closed the fierce beasts, a dozen or so shadows walked out. The one who led person was Su Ro. At that moment, whether it be Su Ro or the aged elders, their expression were very strange. They only saw Chu Feng continuously hitting the already dead rank 4 fierce beast. But to think that so many strong fierce beasts were only killed by one youth, it was unimaginable. Elder Lai, who is that child? Su Ro inquired. Elder Lai did not respond. He looked at the other elders behind him, but all the elders shook their head. You don't know what the name of such an outstanding disciple is. Su Ro's brows wrinkled, showing some displeasement. There are simply too many outer court disciples. If he was hiding his strength, then Elderless face was full of helplessness. Whatever. Hurry up and find out about his background, then tell me. Also, if he doesn't want to expose his strength, then leave it as he wishes and don't let him know that we are trying to understand his power. Su Ro instructed. As you wish. Elder Lai and the others respond respectfully. While facing this inner court elder, they didn't dare to be unrespectful. Su Ro looked deeply and meaningfully at the direction in which Chu Feng left in, and only then did she enter the stone room while contemplating. After Su Ro and the other left, the main hall sunk into silence. A moment later, rapid stepping sounds could be heard from outside of the hall, and one disciple quickly ran over. That person was Du and Yuxuan, but compared to the him before, it was like they were two completely different people. Messy hair, full of sweat, panting heavily and running towards the high platform as if he was crazy. Ha ha. At the end, I am the first. You little child Yang Tianyu, you want to fight me. I secretly endured in the outer court for 6 years. What was it for? I'll tell you right now, it's for these. Duan Yuxuan ran and cheered, as though he was possessed by a demon. His eyes were tightly glued to the tall platform, and he didn't even notice the corpses of the fierce beasts in the hall. Asterisk whoosh asterisk he. leaped and stably landed on the tall platform. But just as he was full of smiles, after looking down, it was like a lightning in a clear sky, and he was instantly shocked. It was because on that tall platform, it was completely empty. There wasn't even a single strand of hair. Damn, what's this? After a long while he refocused. Only then did he notice that fresh blood was everywhere, and the corpse of 40 fierce beasts were scattered in the hall. The death of every fierce beast was very soul-shaking and extremely bloody. That scene completely frightened him. With a poof, he sat on the tall platform. He turned around and looked, but he discovered that the door to pass the exam wasn't opened. What is happening? Duan Yuxuan didn't know what to think, and his thoughts were all scrambled. Asterisk tatata. Asterisk just at that time, Yang Tianyu also ran over, but just as he arrived at the entrance of the hall, he stopped. After looking at the scene in the hall, he looked at the Duan Yuxuan on the platform. He stared with a blank face. You did this? Duan Yuxuan lightly chuckled, then said bitterly, if I said no, would you believe me? Of course I would believe you. It would be impossible for you to have such strong strength. Yang Tianyu shot him a glance and entered the hall. He examined the corpses of the fierce beasts. God, there's even a rank 4 fierce beast here. Whose work is this? After observing for a good while, they couldn't find out the answer. They never would have knew that someone with so much power was within the outer court. At the end, they even suspected that it was a situation planned by the elders, and the elders took the reward for being first. But when the level 3 Spirit Realm Disciple Army arrived, the dramatic scene happened. Everyone thought that it was Yang Tianyu and Duan Yuxuan who killed the fierce beasts, and the two of them divided the reward between them. But then funny thing was, as they were facing the gazes of admiration from the crowd, Yang Tianyu and Duan Yuxuan did not deny it. Just like that, they magically became first. The huge door opened behind them and the cheers also came. Everyone was very happy because when they walked out of that huge door, they would become inner court disciples, and a new life would come. But just as people were cheering, a youth walked over and he attracted everyone's attention. He was completely naked and he was even crying. He cursed while filled with grievance. Who the hell is so cruel? Not only did they knock me out, they even took my clothes. What is this madness? As they looked at that scene, people were astonished. Only Chu Feng smiled, and he slowly left the crowd while looking at his perfect, undamaged clothes. The inner court exam had ended. There were over 10,000 people who participated, but there were only 2,000 people who passed the exam. However, that was no small amount. You only become a real Azure Dragon disciple after entering the inner court. At the same time, you would also receive a more preferable treatment. To welcome the new disciples that entered the inner court, the elders even specially set up a banquet. The round moon hung high up in the night sky. There was plenty of singing and dancing in the inner court, and that raised the happy mood to the highest point. But Chu Feng did not join in the feast. He stayed within his new residence, and he looked at his wound on his bare upper body. The wound was healing, and the healing speed was extremely fast. If it continued at that speed, it only needed a few days for it to make a full recovery. The healing power was given by the divine lightning. What are you? Why did you choose me? It wasn't the first time that Chu Feng asked it that question. He asked countless number of times before, but he never got an answer. He still remembered the night 5 years ago. The sky of the Azure province was enveloped by the 9-colored lightning. The sky was as bright as the day, and the lightning dancing was like a dragon. The thunder in the sky roared, and the ground trembled. People even thought that the world was ending, and everything was in disarray under the panic. But the Chu Feng, who was only 10 years old, couldn't help but run out the door, and he headed towards a spacious land. Even until now, he did not know why he did that. It was as if there was some magic attracting him to go over to that place. After that, the divine lightning attached onto his body. No one saw it, but he knew the 9-colored lightning that shook the entire world was inside his dantian. That divine lightning gave Chu Feng such a strong body. However, Chu Feng did not understand why such a powerful thing was attached onto his body. Whatever, If you don't answer, I won't ask. You and me are one after all." Chu Feng smiled with relief. It was luck and not misfortune. And if it was misfortune, then he couldn't avoid it. If this divine lightning really wanted to do anything bad to him, then with his current power, he had no chance of resisting. But up until now, the divine lightning had only brought benefits, so he didn't bother thinking about it anymore. Chu Feng put his clothes back on and cast his gaze at the book on the head of the bed. On the book there were 3 big words, 3 thunder styles. Chu Feng picked up the book and started to flip through it. It was the first time that he got in touch with a martial skill book, so he was a bit excited in his heart. Rank 4 skill, 3 thunder styles, created by the. After mastering lightning speed, thunderous power, as strong as a rank 5 skill. After looking at the short description, Chu Feng took in a breath of cold air and said surprisingly, "This is a skill that was created by the ancestor who founded this school. There was the founder of the Azure Dragon School. 1,000 years ago, he was unrivaled as he traveled around the world. He had powers to fly in the sky, escape in the ground, move mountains, and fill oceans. He was a real expert in martial cultivation. In that era, the Azure Dragon School that was led by the could be said to be the #1 school in all of the 9 provinces. The only one who could resist against the Azure Dragon School was the current overlord of the 9 provinces, the imperial court. But the good scene did not last for long. After the passed away, the Azure Dragon School started to decline, and it quickly fell from the ranks of the top schools of the 9 provinces. Today, even within the borders of the Azure province, they were only a second-class school. However, that really emphasized the personal strength of the skill he created would certainly be quite a fine product within skill books. You could not get it with begging, but rather by chance instead. As he was being excited, Chu Feng quickly read the training methods and swore to succeed in practicing the 3 thunder styles. Chu Feng did not sleep at all, but at least he understood the ways to train the 3 thunder styles. First style was form, the second style was intention, the third style could create lightning. All in all, to train in the 3 thunder styles was extremely hard, but Chu Feng wanted to give it a try. After some washing his face and rinsing his mouth, Chu Feng didn't feel sleepy, so he headed towards the inner court's martial skill building. First of all, the martial skill building had the facilities for training martial skills. Also, because he couldn't expose that he was training in the 3 thunder styles, he needed to train in another martial skill to fool people. This is quite lively. He walked into the martial skill building and suddenly there was a huge opening. It was overcrowded in the vast main hall of the martial skill building. But that was reasonable. After all, there were 2,000 or so disciples that joined in the inner court yesterday. Those new disciples probably wanted to cultivate some martial skills. The martial skill building was divided into 6 floors. The first floor for choosing rank 1 skills, the second floor for choosing rank 2 skills, the third floor for choosing rank 3 skills, and for floor 4, 5, and 6, they were areas for cultivating the martial skills. Chu Feng kept on going up. He found out that the first floor was packed with people. The second floor was a lot better, and as for the third floor, there were very few people. That was all within expectations. Although it was said that the different ranks of the martial skills had different powers, the training difficulty was different as well. That was why a lot of people who entered the inner court would start training in the rank 1 skills. Then after they mastered it, they would choose the rank 2s, then lastly the rank 3s. But Chu Feng's goal was very clear. Even if the martial skill was only for defense, Chu Feng had to choose the strongest. "Young man, I recommend that you don't bite off more than you can chew. The skills in here are not suited for you." But just as Chu Feng stepped onto the 3rd floor, an aged voice entered his ears. He looked over towards the source of the sound. At the entrance of the 3rd floor, an old man who had white hair, white brows, and a white beard was staring him. Chu Feng knew that he was an elder who guarded the martial skill building. Although he seemed to be almost 100 years old, the elder's strength was very strong. "Thank you for your reminder, but I have my own plans." After respectfully saluting to the elder, he walked in, Tien. By saluting it meant the Chinese salute of cupping one hand over the other. Ah, another arrogant disciple. The elder who was guarding shook his head with disappointment. He had seen many disciples just like Chu Feng, and most of them ended in failure. The ones that failed lightly fixed their ways, but the ones that failed heavily completely walked on the wrong path and forfeited their good future. But even so, when the elder saw a new face coming in, he would kindly remind them to avoid any more disciples going on the wrong path. Chu Feng walked around on the third level, and he quickly picked a skill book that he liked and brought it up to the elder to register it. "Are you sure you want to train in this illusionary palm?" The elder looked at Chu Feng with doubt. Chu Feng smiled and nodded. "Did you look over the description of this skill?" The elder continued to ask. "I have seen it." Chu Feng smiled once again. "Yet you still choose it. This is the hardest one in the entire martial skill building." The elder really did not understand. "This is exactly the one that I want to train in." Chu Feng still hung his smile on his face, but his gaze was abnormally resolute. "Sigh, the youth these days really don't know their limits." The elder sighed, but he still registered for Chu Feng. After giving back the skill book, he added, "Remember to know what point to stop." Chu Feng nodded, representing that he accepted the advice. Although the elder was always doubting Chu Feng had a very good impression of him, and he felt that he was a responsible elder. But just as Chu Feng turned around, a familiar body rubbed his shoulder and passed. It was Duan Yuxuan, and his face was extremely ugly. Chu Feng did not know him well, so he didn't think any more about it. But just as he prepared to leave, he heard whispers behind him, and then he also understood why Duan Yuxuan was depressed. "Isn't that Duan Yuxuan? I thought he already had a rank 4 skill book, so why is he here choosing another skill book? Or is the rank 4 skill book on Yang Tianyu? You don't know." In the feast last night, the inner court elders reminded them that the rank 4 skill book cannot be shared, and only one person could train in it. After they heard the elder say that, the both of them just looked blank. Then they finally confessed to the crowd. It turned out that they weren't first in the exam, and there was another person that killed the 40 fierce beasts. So something like that happened. But why did they admit in doing it at the start? Who knows? Maybe they wanted face, but this time they really lost all of it. True, but who was first? I don't recall that someone was so strong in the outer court. 40 fierce beasts, and there was even a rank 4 in one of them. It really is unimaginable on how tough that person would be. As he listened to that, Chu Feng smiled and shook his head while walking to the next floor. He really wanted to start training. The 4th floor was the same as the first. It was also overcrowded. The new disciples were currently choosing the skill books, so these were the older disciples. Chu Feng looked over. Although it was said to be a floor, it could be better said to be a martial arts training ground. There were at least 1,000 people training with mechanisms, and their yelling extended in all directions. It was quite spectacular. Also, other than the thousands of mechanisms in the main hall, there were countless private rooms which were also for training. It was a pretty good design. The ones that liked to be lively could join in with the people in the main hall, and they could help each other as they sparred. The ones who enjoyed the silence could choose a private room and train there by themselves. After the stone door closed, they would be isolated from all the disturbances. Chu Feng did not join them, and he went straight to the 6th floor. It was similar to the 3rd floor, but it was a lot more quiet. There were also a lot more places for training. Chu Feng entered a private room. After closing the stone door, he bowed to the mechanism pillar, because he knew that the pillar was going to be ruined by him. The mechanism pillar was made out of steel and wood, so it was extremely sturdy. If it was attacked, it would automatically dodge. The dodging speed changed according to the opponent's attacking speed. Unless one perfected in cultivating a martial skill, it was very hard to damage it, thus it was the best equipment for training. Illusionary palm, using the power of the wind from the palm to formlessly control the enemy. Chu Feng looked over the cultivating method for the illusionary palm. Then he went in front of the mechanism pillar. Asterisk whoosh whoosh asterisk he suddenly extended his hands, and he saw that his palm created two traces. They attacked towards 2 points on the mechanism pillar. Asterisk swoosh swoosh asterisk, but just as they were going to land, the pillar swayed left and right, dodging Chu Feng's attack with lightning speed. At that instant, Chu Feng couldn't help but be at a slight loss, but then he quickly smiled with relief. Interesting. From that day forth, other than eating and sleeping, Chu Feng would always be in the martial skill building, and he trained non-stop. The 3 Thunder Styles, created by the founder of the Azure Dragon School. Although it was extremely mysterious, it was also extremely hard to cultivate in. As for the illusionary palm, there was a reason why the elder called it as the hardest skill to train in the entire martial skill building. However, after training for a while, Chu Feng slowly understood the nature of the 2 skills. The 3 Thunder Styles. It was extremely tough and fierce. It was as fast as lightning and as strong as thunder. Every move and every style could take the life of the enemy, and it was very mighty. The illusionary palm. It was actually the complete opposite, replacing the reality and attacking when they get caught off guard. Although it wasn't as valiant as the 3 Thunder Styles, it was still quite the skill, and they were different in their own ways. After a good 10 days of minimal meals and sleeping, Chu Feng finally grasped the 2 types of skills. Although it couldn't be said that he perfected the illusionary palm, there wasn't much difference to it. On the other hand, he only successfully trained in the first 2 style of the 3 Thunder Styles. But even so, when Chu Feng successfully used the second style, he was shocked by the strong power. On the 3rd floor in the martial skill building, the elder who guarded was still the same, and Chu Feng was returning the illusionary palm. What, did you reach a dead end? The elder looked at Chu Feng with a bit of mock in his eyes, and the corner of his mouth showed that he was a bit proud of himself. Chu Feng did not reply and just smiled. But in the elder's eyes, Chu Feng's smile meant that he silently confirmed it. Go to the 1st floor and start from the rank 1 skills. Taking back the skill book, the elder reminded with goodwill. Thank you, elder. Chu Feng saluted and took his leave. He knows when to back off, so he still understands a bit. Looking at the departing back of Chu Feng, the elder nodded. The martial skill building was not open for the entire day. When the sun setted, the martial skill building would close, and at that time, all the elder guards would need to check the skill books and the mechanisms. What's this fuss about that needs me to personally go and see? Elder Aoyang, you have to check this out. I haven't seen such a strong disciple in such a long time. On the staircase, a middle-aged man was leading a white-haired elder, and they were heading towards a private room on the 6th floor. Within the private room, the indestructible mechanism pillar was full of dents, and it was almost able to be scraped. As he saw at the mechanism pillar, the white-haired elder's face became extremely heavy, and he looked at it carefully. This is... But as he found out that there were shallow palm marks one after the other on the mechanism, he couldn't help but be astonished. With his experience, he could instantly tell that the pillar was damaged by the illusionary palm. But in the inner court, there were very few disciples that could train the illusionary palm to that degree. Also, those who were able to already left to experience the outside world, and pretty much none of them remained in the martial skill building to train. After some deep thinking, the eyes of the elder suddenly lit up and he said with shock, "Don't tell me it's him." It turned out that this Aoyang elder was the elder that registered for Chu Feng. However, he also had another identity, the director of the martial skill building. He felt that the one who damaged the mechanism pillar like this could have been Chu Feng. But then, after some careful thinking, he felt that it wasn't right. After all, Chu Feng had only trained the illusionary palm for 10 days. After only 10 days, it was impossible to be able to use it to such degree. Elder Aoyang, look at this. Just as he was thinking hard and unable to understand, a call came from the private room right next to his. But the pillar just now wasn't even the important part. Aoyang was astonished once again, because the mechanism pillar in the adjacent private room was completely destroyed. 3 Thunder Styles, the 2nd style. No one from the outer court can train in this skill. This time, Aoyang's face became serious. 3 thunder styles. It was a skill that only the core disciples could train in. Now it appeared in the outer court, which more or less meant that there were core disciples that leaked this skill to the outer court. But after some more precise thinking, he felt that it was impossible. The rules of the Azure Dragon School were very strict. If someone privately leaked the skill book out, it could be found out very easily. The core disciples wouldn't be so foolish to do those kinds of things. It is possible that. Finally, Aoyang found a trace of possibility. He said to the elder behind him, "Request for Elder Su Ro." At the same time, Chu Feng was cultivating in his own room. After 2 hours of refining, he continuously refined 3 Saint Spirit grasses. If someone saw that scene, they would certainly be speechless. Even for masters, to refine 1 Saint Spirit grass required at least 1 day. But Chu Feng didn't even need 1 hour. Also, the Saint Spirit grass the Chu Feng refined would all be absorbed by the Danshan, and nothing would be wasted. Even martial cultivating masters couldn't do that. It was said that if a normal person refined a Saint Spirit grass, it was already very good if they could absorb 50% of the spiritual energy. It seems like the price for getting your power is extremely huge. But even so, Chu Feng was a bit helpless. It was because, after refining the 3 Saint Spirit grasses, he didn't even feel a single trace of having a breakthrough. He even felt that his Danshan was empty. If he was a normal person, and he if completely absorbed the spiritual energy from the 3 Saint Spirit grasses, he would have pretty much went from the 4th level of the spirit realm to the 5th level of the spirit realm. That indicated a problem. Although the divine lightning gave Chu Feng strength that exceeded normal people to rise in cultivation levels, Chu Feng also needed to pay the cost. That exceeded normal people, spiritual energy, although Chu Feng could condense it. But even with months of non-stop cultivation, would not be as good as of the spiritual energy contained in a single Saint Spirit grass. This showed the price that Chu Feng had to pay if he wanted to raise his cultivation level. It would also be a huge problem in his future. Is this the so-called there are detriments to all advantages? Chu Feng really wanted to refine the 2 Saint Spirit grass as he looked at them on the head of his bed. But he didn't do that because he prepared to give them to Chu Iwei. Chu Iwei should be stepping into the 5th level of the spirit realm soon. These 2 Saint Spirit grasses should give her a hand. After some hesitation, Chu Feng put away the Saint Spirit grasses, blew the candle and slept. The morning on the next day, Chu Feng already woke up early, so he pocketed the Saint Spirit grasses and wanted to find Chu Iwei. But sadly, the inner court was really too big, and the amount of inner court disciples was rumored to be even more than the amount of outer court disciples. There was at least 100,000 inner court disciples within the vast group of palaces that filled the eye as far as it could see. To try to find a person here was like fishing a needle from an ocean. Brothers say, do we join an alliance or not? This is and more power comes from more people. Once you enter an alliance, it's really hard to get away from it. In the future, if the alliance has troubles, we would get dragged into together. That is true. Whatever, let's register at the plaza first. 2 young males that seemed to be brothers passed Chu Feng, but their conversation made Chu Feng very happy. Seniors, you just said that the registration is starting. Chu Feng went up and asked. That's right. Every year, the time of the hunt is always different, so this year's was earlier than last year's. You seem to be a new disciple this year. If you want to register, come with us. That senior was fairly friendly. Sorry to trouble you too. Chu Feng politely smiled, and he was quite joyful. The so-called spiritual medicine was medicine that contained spiritual energy. There were different types, and spiritual medicine was divided into low quality, medium quality, high quality, and top quality. The Saint Spirit grass that Chu Feng had was a high-quality spiritual medicine. There was a welfare for the inner court disciples by the Azure Dragon School. In a certain area on the Azure Dragon mountain range, there were large amounts of spiritual medicine, and that area was called the Spiritual Medicine Mountain. Spiritual Medicine Mountain. It was originally the forbidden lands of the Azure Dragon School, but every year they would open it up and all inner court disciples could register and join. It was called because the spiritual medicine had spiritual natures. They could hide in the ground, run away with extreme speed, and they even had strong attacks, so it was quite difficult to pick them. The current Chu Feng needed spiritual medicines the most, and the more the merrier. Conveniently, the started, and it could be said to be an enormous good news. Junior, it seems that you haven't joined in an alliance yet. Are you preparing to hunt by yourself? One of the brother was looking up and down at Chu Feng. Is there anything wrong with that? Chu Feng didn't understand. I'll be honest, this hunt is not something that can be done by one person, so I suggest that you join in an alliance. The two brothers kindly gave him advice. The so-called alliance was an organization created by the inner court disciples. Because these organizations could pull the relationships closer between disciples, the Azure Dragon School did not oppose it, and instead, they encouraged it. I've just joined in the inner court, so I don't understand the things about alliances too well. I wonder which alliance in the inner court are strong. Chu Feng asked with curiosity. Although the Wings Alliance are strong, they have too little people. Two fists cannot fight four hands, and if there really was a conflict, they could not be the opponent of the World Alliance and the Sword Alliance. The elder brother shook his head. That may not be so. Although the Wings Alliance have little people, they are like dragons within men, and they have the ability to attack 100 with one. I feel that even if the World Alliance and the Sword Alliance joined hands, they might not be able to defeat the Wings Alliance. The younger brother retorted, "What is this Wings Alliance?" Seeing as the two of them did not rest in their debates, Chu Feng got more and more curious as he listened. Junior, listen to me. The Wings Alliance are the legends in our inner court. Seeing that, the younger brother held on to Chu Feng and started to narrate as his saliva splattered everywhere. The Wings Alliance rarely recruit members, but when they do, the people they recruit are like the dragon within men. Although the Wings Alliance only has 32 people within the inner court, they are very well-known people. Also, their hearts are one, and they look at each other like an extension of their hands and feet. Whoever dares to make a move against the members of the Wings Alliance, no matter who it is, they will have their revenge. 2 years ago, a third-rate school in the Azure province harmed a member of the Wings Alliance. The one that exterminated the school was also the Wings Alliance. That's strong. Listening to that point, Chu Feng was also astonished. Although a third-rate school could not be compared to the Azure Dragon School, it still had quite some power. To be able to exterminate them showed that the Wings Alliance were very strong. Also, although the founders of the World Alliance and the Sword Alliance are very strong, but compared to the founder of the Wings Alliance, there's a huge difference. According to the rumors, the founder of the Wings Alliance entered the inner court at the age of 11, became a core disciple at the age of 14, and was the #1 disciple at the age of 16 in the Azure Dragon School. But sadly, he is no longer in the Azure Dragon School. In the year that he was 16, he left this place and no one knew where he went. As he talked about things like that, the younger brother seemed to be rather regretful. Who was that person called? Chu Feng was amazed even more. Core disciples were important figures of the Azure Dragon School, and every one of them could be said to be geniuses in martial cultivation. The founder of the Wings Alliance became the strongest within the core disciples at the age of 16. How outstanding was that person? His name is Xianxia. The younger brother said his name one word at a time. Xianxia. Chu Feng remembered that name because he was qualified to be remembered by Chu Feng. That's right, I heard that our inner court beauty elder Su Ro is also one of the members of the Wings Alliance, and she is also one of the strongest within the core disciples. Also, other than Elder Su Ro within today's core disciples, there are a lot of people who belong to the Wings Alliance. All of their achievements are not inferior to the founders of the World Alliance or the Sword Alliance. Isn't the Wings Alliance strong? The younger brother continued saying, If you say it like that, then this Wings Alliance is really strong. Are there any special symbols for the members of the Wings Alliance? Chu Feng was getting more and more interested in this Wings Alliance. It's rare to see anyone from the Wings Alliance, but on their chest, they would wear a small badge, and a pair of wings are on that badge. The three of them chatted as they walked, and soon they arrived at the plaza that was filled with people. It was the place to register for the spiritual medicine hunt. Actually, the so-called registration was writing your own name on a wall scroll, then taking a token. There were no elders there. Junior, the spiritual medicine hunt starts tomorrow, so I'm thinking that you should join in an alliance and request for shelter. I'll give you a word of advice. Don't think of joining an alliance like the Wings Alliance, because we won't even have a single chance in our lifetime. No need to even mention the Wings Alliance. The World Alliance and the Sword Alliance are not easy to enter as well. So, if you want to join an alliance, you need to keep your eyes open. After registering, the two brothers started to take advantage of the mood again. Please give me some pointers. Seeing that the brothers were so friendly, Chu Feng couldn't bear to not give them face. Although the stronger alliances are harder to enter, you cannot choose a weak one. For example, you should never enter those who say how good their alliance are to one person after the other. Those alliances could not even protect you, and you would only get bullied. Like that girl who's giving bamboo sheets to everyone. With a glance, you could tell that she's from some weak little alliance, and they're here to trick the new disciples. Saying that, the elder brother pointed towards a purple-clothed young female from nearby. Looking over to the direction that he was pointing at, Chu Feng couldn't help but look blankly. That purple-clothed young female was Chu Iwei. Chu Iwei? Seeing her, Chu Feng yelled excitedly. After hearing Chu Feng's yells, Chu Iwei turned her head to look. When she saw Chu Feng, she also was joyful, and as she waved, she yelled, "Chu Feng!" Chu Feng wanted to find Chu Iwei, but he never would have thought that they would meet at a place like that. So he hurriedly walked over to Chu Iwei. Ah, he's finished. Another idiot has been tricked. We've wasted our time after talking to him for so long. Seeing that, the pair of brothers looked at each other with their 4 eyes and shook their head. Chu Feng, you finally entered the inner court. This is great. We can finally start training together. As she looked at Chu Feng's purple clothing, Chu Iwei was so happy that her heart could jump. From the bottom of her heart, she was happy for Chu Feng. Chu Iwei, what are you doing? Chu Feng was fairly curious as he gazed at the bamboo sheets. Oh, you still don't know, huh? Chu Wei created an alliance in the inner court called the Chu Alliance. All the people from the Chu family are in this Chu Alliance. But even so, there are still 2 little people in our alliance. So, taking advantage of this year's new disciples that are entering the inner court, I want to try to pull some more people to enter our Chu Alliance and increase our power. After all, if the Chu Alliance has a good development in the future, it will help our Chu family greatly. Chu Iwei explained while smiling. The Chu Wei that Chu Iwei mentioned was a young elder brother in the Chu family. He was 20 years old this year, and 10 years ago, he entered the Azure Dragon School. However, Chu Feng did not have a good impression on that Chu Wei, as Chu Wei was one of the people that bullied him a lot when he was younger. I'll help you. Although he didn't like Chu Wei, Chu Feng didn't want Chu Iwei to work too hard. It's fine, it's really fine. You don't understand the situation in the Chu Alliance, so I can do it myself. Chu Iwei smiled while declining, then asked with concern, "That's right. Chu Feng, did you register in the spiritual medicine hunt? Look at this." Chu Feng smiled and took out the token for the spiritual medicine hunt. "That's great. This time I can go with you and catch the spiritual medicines. I'll tell you this. Catching the spiritual medicine is a battle of wits and bravery, and it's very interesting." As she mentioned the spiritual medicine hunt, Chu Iwei seemed to really look forward to it. "Chu Feng, I'll be getting busy. At night, come and find me. I have something that I want to say to you, so you have to come." Chu Iwei saw another new disciple walking past, so she quickly stuffed a bamboo sheet into Chu Feng's hands and walked over to that new disciple. and introduced the Chu alliance to him. Seeing Chu Iwei insisting like that, Chu Feng didn't force the issue. On that bamboo sheet, the location of Chu Iwei's residence was written on it. Walking in the plaza and scanning through the crowds, he found out that there were quite a few people who were like Chu Iwei that advertised their alliance, but very little people cared about them, since everyone wasn't an idiot. Unless they couldn't enter the stronger alliances, very little people would choose to join small alliances like that. The so-called Chu alliance only had Chu Iwei herself recruiting members. Even the founder, Chu Wei, did not appear. It showed that only Chu Iwei thought about the Chu family. Night came, so Chu Feng went to Chu Iwei's residence as planned. Chu Iwei was walking back and forth outside the residence, and it was obvious that she was waiting for someone. When Chu Iwei saw Chu Feng, she put both of her hands behind her back while skipping and jumping her way over. Although Chu Iwei was 1 year older than Chu Feng, she was still at the prime of her youth. Not only was her appearance beautiful, her character was also lively and cheerful. In the Chu family, Chu Iwei could be said to be a clown. No matter if it was the old or young, they all liked this little strange girl. As she arrived in front of Chu Feng, Chu Iwei opened her hands and said while laughing, "Hey, hurry and pick it up." Between her 2 white palms was a Saint Spirit grass. Chu Iwei this, Chu Feng was speechless. "Yes, this is for you from me, and it's my supplement for this year." As Chu Iwei spoke, she forced the Saint Spirit grass into Chu Feng's hands. "If it's like that, I can't have it. Did you forget that I still owe you 2 Saint Spirit grasses?" Chu Feng pushed the Saint Spirit grass back, and as he said that, he pulled one out from his pocket. "Chu Feng, you didn't refine the Saint Spirit grass." Looking at the intact Saint Spirit grass, Chu Iwei thought that it was the one that she gave Chu Feng. I've already broke through, so I don't need it for now. I might as well return it back to you. How can I take your Saint Spirit grass? These are yours, so hurry up and take it." "Chu Iwei, I said that I would return too, so I will return too. Didn't you promise as well? You're making things very hard for me when you're like this. But you didn't even use the Saint Spirit grass that you gave me, and instead you give me yours. Isn't that just me taking advantage of you?" "Chu Iwei, I understand your kind meanings. In the entire Chu family, besides my elder brother and my father, you treat me the best. Just view this as a younger brother showing you respect." That was said from the bottom of Chu Feng's heart. Everyone in the Chu family pushed him aside, so it really moved him when Chu Iwei could treat him with kindness. Seeing that Chu Feng was so determined, on Chu Iwei's face, colors of shame emerged on her face as she said quietly, "Chu Feng, you doing this really makes me feel very ashamed. Actually, this Saint Spirit grass isn't from me. Chu Guyu asked me to represent him to give it to you." "My brother." Chu Feng couldn't help but look blankly for a moment. Chu Guyu was Chu Yuan's blood-related child, and he was Chu Feng's elder brother. He was training in the Lingyun School, the #1 school in the Azure province. He was at the 6th level of the spirit realm at the age of 17, and he was the strongest person in the Chu family's young generation. Although Chu Feng wasn't Chu Yuan's blood-related child, Chu Guyu still treated him as his own younger brother, and he was one of the most respected and loved people by Chu Feng. He was afraid that you would be burdened, so he instructed me to not say that it was from him. But now I have to say the truth. Chu Iwei's face was red, and it could be seen that she was really ashamed. "Chu Iwei, even so, I still have to thank you. Although this Saint Spirit grass may not be from you, your feelings from all these years towards me are. Like I said, just take it as your younger brother giving respect to you by giving these 2 Saint Spirit grasses to you. Besides, you're going to enter the 5th level of the spirit realm soon, so this Saint Spirit grass is more important to you. Because of that, don't refuse this Saint Spirit grass." Chu Feng still firmly continued to put the Saint Spirit grass in Chu Iwei's hands. "In that case, I'll only look at this as me borrowing a Saint Spirit grass, but I can only borrow one because I can only afford to give one back." Seeing Chu Feng so insisted, Chu Iwei gnashed her teeth and she could only take one of the Saint Spirit grass. In reality, what Chu Feng said was correct. Chu Iwei was going to enter the 5th level of the spirit realm soon, and at that moment, it was a crucial stage. This Saint Spirit grass was indeed very important to her. Done. Chu Feng smiled. That's right. Chu Feng, Chu Guyu had a letter that he wanted me to give to you. Chu Iwei took a letter out from her waist. As he accepted the letter, Chu Feng felt a burst of emotions. He hadn't returned to the Chu family in 5 years, which meant that he hadn't seen his father and his elder brother in 5 years. He did not return because he felt that he was too shameful to see them. But in the 5 years, his brother and his father would write him a letter almost every single month. It showed how those two thought of Chu Feng. Okay, read the letter when you get back. Hurry up and follow me because today is a good day. Chu Iwei grabbed Chu Feng's arms and pulled him towards the residence. But before even getting close, Chu Feng started frowning. He heard lots of familiar sounds in the residence, and those were all people that he did not like. Indeed, in the instant that the door to the residence opened, there were 32 faces there. A large portion of them were familiar faces, and almost all the members of the Chu family who were disciples of the Azure Dragon School were here. As for the few strangers, Chu Feng could guess where they came from. They must be the new members of the Chu Alliance. Everyone, see who's here, Chu Iwei yelled happily. When the gazes of the crowd were cast over to that direction, Chu Feng could feel that they was filled with disdain and hate. Oh, I wondered who it was. Isn't it the person who performed outstanding deeds to our Chu family? One youth walked over to Chu Feng. It was Chu Cheng, and he was Chu Zhen's elder brother. He entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as Chu Iwei, and he was also in the 4th level of the spirit realm. Chu Feng, you've done the deeds. You know that. Chu Cheng pointed at Chu Feng and his gaze was not kind. Chu Cheng, what are you talking about? Today is a rejoiceful day, so don't speak nonsense. Chu Iwei quickly spoke. What's wrong, Chu Iwei? You're not letting me talk about all his deeds. Chu Cheng shot Chu Iwei a glance, then looked at Chu Feng. Chu Feng, did you know that you've done the deeds? Damn, you've done great deeds. You've stayed as an outer court disciple for 5 years in the Azure Dragon School, and you have disgraced the Chu family. But even so, you still have face to join in this Chu Alliance gathering. How thick is the skin of your face? Chu Cheng, shut up. Chu Iwei was a bit angry, but before letting her say any more, Chu Feng pulled her. Chu Feng's face did not change, but at the end he lightly smiled and said, You're thinking too much. I have no interest in your gathering. I am demanding a payment here today. Payment? What payment? After hearing those words, Chu Cheng's face instantly changed. That's quite funny. A person taken in my Chu family is actually demanding a payment from the Chu family. Do you not know who gave you what you have right now? That's right, too shameless. At the same time, the people from the Chu family started criticizing Chu Feng. Chu Feng ignored the words of the crowd, and as he walked into the residence, he said, A few days ago, a certain person made a bet with me, and bet that I wouldn't pass the inner court disciple exam. He even said if he lost, he would give the yearly supplemented Saint Spirit grass to me. Chu Zhen, you didn't forget about that, right? Chu Feng stopped in front of Chu Zhen. Chu Zhen was sitting on a chair while chewing on some fruits in his mouth. However, the corner of his mouth twitched, and his face was extremely ugly. Of course, Chu Zhen did not forget the things that he said that day. Since he was afraid that Chu Feng would mention that matter, he honestly stayed here. Or else, with his temper, he would have searched Chu Feng out for trouble already. Chu Feng, you need evidence for your words. Just at that time, a young man next to Chu Zhen opened his mouth. In the residence, most of the males and females were as old as Chu Feng, but this young man was not. Indeed, he was Chu Wei. Chu Wei is correct. If you made a bet with Chu Zhen, you need to pull out the evidence or else you are only spitting out false accusations. Chu Cheng yelled out first because he was Chu Zhen's elder brother. That's right, take out the evidence, or else don't think of walking out here today. After Chu Cheng, pretty much everyone from the Chu family in the hall started yelling. Even the non-Chu family members also joined in. Although they were not be part of the Chu family, they could tell that Chu Feng's position in the Chu family was very low. If his own family was looking down on him, then naturally they would as well. I testify for Chu Feng. But just at that time, Chu Iwei, who did not speak for a long time, suddenly spoke. At that instant, the hall went into complete silence and all the gazes were cast towards Chu Iwei. Chu Iwei, what did you say? You cannot speak such nonsense to testify. As Chu Wei said that, his dense gaze was filled with implications of warning. His meaning was very clear, and it was to make Chu Iwei say the truth. I am not speaking nonsense. That day when Chu Jin and Chu Feng made the bet, I was there, and it was even Chu Jin who let me be a witness. After that, Chu Iwei was not afraid of Chu Wei at all. She stood next to Chu Feng, as if hiddenly telling the crowd which side she was standing on. At that moment, not only Chu Jin, even Chu Cheng, Chu Wei, and most of the Chu family's faces were starting to change. They never would have thought that Chu Iwei would do this for Chu Feng, and she was even willing to go against the entire Chu family crowd. In reality, even Chu Feng felt a bit surprised since by doing this, Chu Iwei would offend a lot of people. But other than that, Chu Feng felt moved. Chu Jin, are you failing to honor your debt? Chu Feng continued to pressure him. With Chu Iwei as a witness, he did not believe that Chu Jin would deny it. Chu Jin's face was extremely ugly and he did not know how to reply. Every year, the family only supplemented one Saint Spirit grass. Other than the one, they did not have any other chances to get such a good spiritual medicine. He just got his supplemented Saint Spirit grass, and Chu Jin was preparing to use it to make a breakthrough into the 4th level of the spirit realm. How could he give it up to someone? HMPH, so what if it's true? You entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as Chu Jin. He already entered the inner court 2 years ago and you are a full 2 years late. What? After using that much time to enter the inner court, you're still arrogant. You want to extort Chu Jin's supplement. Chu Cheng coldly smiled and cunningly argued. As Chu Jin's elder brother, it was obvious that he wouldn't let Chu Feng take away his brother's supplement. Don't tell me that. Your brother should know what is happening. If you are failing to honor your debt, just admit it. I can forget about it. But you need him to personally admit that his words are like fart, and they are absolutely untrustable. Chu Feng did not let him go. With those words, Chu Jin was really gnashing his teeth out of anger, yet he could not refute him since it was true. Ha ha, jokes, failing to honor a debt. Have I ever mentioned anything about that? You can have Chu Jin's Saint Spirit grass, but you need to admit in front of the crowd that you are a useless garbage, an idiot that needed 5 years to enter the inner court. Everyone, am I correct? Chu Cheng yelled loudly. That's right, Chu Cheng is right. That's right, if you want to take the Saint Spirit grass, you need to admit that you are garbage. As long as you admit it, then we'll just give it as pity to a beggar. Chu Cheng raised his hands and yelled, and naturally, everyone yelled in response. In the Chu family, excluding Chu Yuan, Chu Guyu and Chu Iwei, pretty much no one liked Chu Feng and they all wanted him out of the Chu family. They all wanted Chu Feng to feel horrible. Chu Cheng, don't create trouble without a reason. This is a private matter between Chu Jin and Chu Feng, so all of you are not qualified to interrupt. Chu Iwei scolded. I only look at the case and not the person. In any case, Chu Feng is not an outsider. He is part of the Chu family. You clearly know whether or not he is part of the Chu family. However, I can tell you that Chu Jin is your own brother. You don't even bother to reason. Chu Iwei was so angered by Chu Cheng that her entire body was trembling. But just at that time, Chu Feng put his hands on Chu Iwei's shoulders and moved her behind him. Although the current Chu Feng had the same smile as always on his face, his gaze became serious and he said calmly, I will only ask you one question. Will you give this Saint Spirit grass to me or no? Ho, Chu Feng, don't say that we are making things hard for you, but you really are not qualified to take Chu Jin's Saint Spirit grass. How about this? I'll give you a chance. Duel a bit with Chu Jin. If you win, that shows that you are qualified to take away this Saint Spirit grass. Chu Iwei, Don't say that I'm not speaking reason. I'll even take my own Saint Spirit grass out. If Chu Feng can win, then these are all his." While saying that, Chu Cheng put the Saint Spirit grass from his pocket onto the table. Also at the same time, Chu Cheng shot a glance at Chu Zhen. Chu Zhen instantly understood, and he also put his Saint Spirit grass onto the table. "Chu Zhen, you've entered the inner court for 2 years, and you've also cultivated 2 skills. On the other hand, Chu Feng just entered the inner court. Don't you feel ashamed dueling with him? You just aren't willing to give it up." Chu Iwei still felt that it was unfair towards Chu Feng. "Shut up. You don't have any part in this." Chu Cheng threateningly pointed at Chu Iwei, then narrowed his eyes and looked at Chu Feng. "But if you lose, bring your Saint Spirit grass out. Do you dare?" At that instant, all the eyes landed on Chu Feng and they were waiting for his reply. If Chu Feng refused, they could humiliate Chu Feng and say that he was a coward. If Chu Feng agreed, Chu Zhen could openly give Chu Feng a lesson. No matter what, Chu Feng was in a dangerous spot. They only wanted to see how Chu Feng would be humiliated. "Why wouldn't I dare?" Chu Feng smiled and agreed. "Good, you have the guts, but let's say this first. Fists and kicks don't have eyes, so you cannot complain about any injuries." Chu Cheng's smile became even more despicable. "Enough with the rubbish. Come at me." Chu Feng put his own Saint Spirit grass on the table, then walked to the middle of the hall. "Chu Feng." Chu Iwei pulled on Chu Feng, and those flickering eyes were urging him not to duel with Chu Zhen. But Chu Feng pushed away Chu Iwei's hands with a smile and said, "Trust me." Seeing that, Chu Iwei couldn't help but have a blank look. For some reason, she had a feeling that Chu Feng would undoubtedly win this round. Chu Feng and Chu Zhen walked towards the middle of the hall, and everyone surrounded them. They didn't want to miss out on Chu Feng's humiliation. "Chu Feng, it seems that you want the riches but not your life." The Chu Zhen that hadn't spoken in a long time finally had a smile on his face, but his smile was very evil. Being forced into the embarrassing situation by Chu Feng made him very unhappy. Since he had a chance to teach Chu Feng a lesson, obviously, he wouldn't restrain himself. "Ho ho." Chu Feng lightly smiled, then said, "I just wanted to say those words to you. You talk too big. Today I'll let you know how weak you are." Suddenly, Chu Zhen's left feet stepped forward. One could only hear a boom before his entire body ran with flying speed. Both his arms were moving, and his punches were flying everywhere. Powerful aura came from his body, and he was like a wild, fierce beast as he headed towards Chu Feng. Rank 1 skill, the 100-armed fists reached the point of mastery. Cries of surprise sounded in the hall, and everyone could see that Chu Zhen was able to fully use that skill. Although the 100-armed fists was only a rank 1 skill, if it was mastered, it would be very strong as well. If they were on the same level and if there wasn't an appropriate skill to counter it, he would have no chance. That was why everyone knew that Chu Feng, without a doubt, would lose. Chu Iwei frowned and secretly walked 2 steps forward. She wanted to stop Chu Zhen's evil schemes. "Chu Iwei, observers cannot help. You should know this rule right." But just at that time, she heard a sound next to her ear. She turned around and she saw that Chu Cheng was smiling and staring at herself. Chu Iwei knew that the situation was not good since she never thought that Chu Cheng would have his eyes on her. However, because of that, it meant that the 2 brothers would not easily let Chu Feng go, and that made her even more worried. Asterisk whoosh. Whoosh whoosh asterisk. The afterimages of the fists filled the air and almost completely blocked Chu Feng's line of sight. With the sound of breaking through the air, he suddenly attacked. Chu Feng could feel that Chu Zhen's fist was not ordinary, and he did not restrain himself in any way. It showed that he was very ruthless. But Chu Feng was not afraid at all, and he stood still. He did not dodge nor escape, and he only silently waited for the attack. Is this Chu Feng stupid? Why isn't he dodging? He wants to dodge, but could he? With his power, he probably can't react in time. That's true. He is, after all, the trash that stayed in the outer court for 5 years. Seeing that Chu Feng did not dodge, they even thought that Chu Feng was scared stiff by Chu Zhen's might, and their faces revealed the smiles of seeing others in misfortune. Asterisk who asterisk but just as Chu Zhen got near, Chu Feng suddenly waved his sleeve, and an extremely huge aura exploded from inside his body. When that aura pounced at Chu Zhen, he was suddenly at a loss because within that aura he felt killing intent. Asterisk whoosh asterisk just as Chu Zhen was staring blankly, Chu Feng suddenly stuck his palm out. The speed was extremely fast, and before anyone reacted to it, he already blasted it onto Chu Zhen's chest. Asterisk boom asterisk with the strike of the palm, Chu Zhen instantly felt that his chi and blood were raging as a wave of pain came from his chest. Asterisk swoosh 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 asterisk but before he even had time to think, Chu Feng already sent a few more palms and they all struck Chu Zhen. Chu Zhen cried out loud. Both his legs went numb and he directly kneeled in front of Chu Feng, then fell on the ground without power. The scene widened everyone's mouth. They would have never thought that Chu Feng would have such an explosive power. However, they didn't even know that it was the result of Chu Feng restraining himself. Or else with only one palm, he could have killed Chu Zhen. You are at the 4th level of the spirit realm. At that time, Chu Wei opened his mouth. Both his eyes tightly stared at Chu Feng and they were filled with astonishment. What? 4th level of the spirit realm. With those words, everyone came to their senses. To beat someone at the 3rd level of the spirit realm, without using martial skills, meant that they required the power of the 4th level of the spirit realm. However, trying to connect 4th level of the spirit realm with Chu Feng was unimaginable, and it was hard to accept by the crowd. Not only them, even Chu Iwei had her eyes wide open. Her small mouth slowly opened and her face was full of surprise. Chu Feng didn't care about the crowd. He directly walked in front of the table, took the 3 Saint Spirit grasses and walked towards the door. Stop right there. This is an exchange between family members, yet you attack so heavily. Where is your heart? Just at that time, someone suddenly yelled out. Looking over, Chu Cheng was holding Chu Zhen by the arm and lifting him up while his face was full of anger. It was not endurable when his younger brother got beaten up by someone to this extent. What? When did you see me as part of your family? I don't recall you saying that before. Chu Feng lightly smiled then said, even you said it. Fists and kicks don't have eyes, so you cannot complain about any injuries. What are you doing right now? You can't take the loss. I can't take the loss. It's obvious that you intentionally heavily attacked. Chu Zhen bit his teeth to endure the pain and loudly lashed out. As the victim, he was very clear that Chu Feng's first palm already defeated him. But Chu Feng continued to bombard him with more attacks, so it was obvious that it was intentional, and he wanted to humiliate him even more. As he listened to that, Chu Feng smiled again. I just entered the 4th level of the spirit realm, so I don't understand my strength that much. And before, your skill seemed so strong, so naturally I didn't dare to underestimate it, and I used my full strength to answer your attack. But who would have thought that you were just like a paper tiger, so weak that you couldn't even take one hit? I overestimated you a bit. After listening to Chu Feng's words, Chu Zhen's face was pale. He was so angry that every breath he was taking made huge sounds, and he almost spit out his own liver out from all the puffing. Not only was he defeated by the garbage, he was even mocked in front of the crowd. It was extremely hard for him to accept that, but even if he wasn't willing to, he could say nothing about it because the rules just now were made by him and his brother. Chu Feng, don't be too arrogant. If you have the guts, then let's go right now. Just at that time, another person from the Chu family stood up. Oh, you want to duel me as well? That's fine. Just bet a Saint Spirit grass. Do you dare? Chu Feng stretched his hand towards that person. That person was the same as Chu Zhen, as he also entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as Chu Feng. However, his strength was not strong as Chu Zhen. He did dare to duel Chu Feng, but he did not dare if he had to bet the Saint Spirit grass. What's wrong? If there's anyone else who wants to go, you can come right now as long as you don't mind parting with your Saint Spirit grass. Chu Feng scanned his gaze at the crowd, but not one of them dared to look at him in the eyes. They were not afraid of Chu Feng. They just didn't dare to take the Saint Spirit grass as a wager because those were their lifeline. Chu Feng, don't be excessive. Finally, Chu Wei talked. What's this? Chu Wei, you also want to go. If I'm not mistaken, you are 5 years older than me, right? If you don't mind people saying that you are bullying the young, I don't mind. After all, if I lose, I won't lose face, and if I win, I'll earn big, right? As he listened to those words, Chu Wei clenched his fists, but he said nothing more. It was because Chu Feng was correct. Chu Wei was not like Chu Cheng or Chu Jin, since there was not much of an age difference between them and Chu Feng. However, Chu Wei couldn't because he was not a youth anymore. With his age, even if he defeated Chu Feng, he would be ridiculed by others. So that was why he could not attack. Seeing that most of the people in the hall lowered their heads, Chu Feng suddenly laughed. He laughed very happily, but before turning around and leaving, he said, I'll give everyone here two phrases before I leave. The first is thinking that you are infallible. The second is self-ridicule. As for the meanings behind them, all of you can comprehend them by yourselves. After saying that, Chu Feng forced a door open and left elegantly. At that instant, the atmosphere in the residence became very awkward. Originally, the Chu family wanted Chu Feng to be humiliated. But now, they got humiliated by Chu Feng in front of several outsiders instead. That really made them feel that they had no more face. But the most unacceptable thing was Chu Feng's strength. Originally, they thought that Chu Feng was the garbage of the Chu family. But now, Chu Feng was at the 4th level of the spirit realm, and he surpassed many people. That made them feel a lot of shame. Chu Feng walked out of the residence, and he felt refreshed in his heart. Pretty much from his younger times until now, he was bullied by those people, and finally he bullied them back today. Actually, that wasn't bullying. Chu Feng was only forced by them. But no matter what, Chu Feng felt extremely refreshed. Chu Feng. Before Chu Feng even walked far, a sweet call came from behind him, and it was Chu Iwei. Chu Iwei, why did you come out? Chu Feng asked confusedly. Chu Iwei ran to Chu Feng's side while laughing, and using her white hand, she lightly punched Chu Feng's chest and said happily, You're quite good. I was saying why you were so calm when you were in the outer court. But now, after a day, you already caught up to me. Chu Feng embarrassedly shook his head. Chu Iwei, I've given you troubles today, and it seems that your Chu Alliance gathering has to end unhappily. Don't worry, giving them a lesson is good, or else they would bully you all day. That's right. Chu Feng, let's go together in the spiritual medicine hunt tomorrow. Those things are very hard to catch alone. You know my relationship with them. Even if I was willing to join the Chu Alliance, they wouldn't be willing to. Chu Feng shook his head. Don't worry about those things and just leave it to me. Just come and find us here tomorrow. Chu Iwei gave another bamboo sheet to Chu Feng, and on there was the gathering location for the Chu Alliance tomorrow. Fine. Seeing Chu Iwei being so persistent, Chu Feng could not bear to refuse it. After appeasing Chu Feng, Chu Iwei jumped and bounced back to the residence. She was really happy today because Chu Feng gave her a huge surprise. Everyone in the world respected strength, and seeing that Chu Feng revealed unordinary strength, she felt that perhaps people from the Chu family would start to accept Chu Feng. To unify the Chu family without discrimination was her biggest wish. Chu Wei, you guys. But just as she arrived in front of the residence, Chu Iwei found out that all the Chu Alliance members already left. HMPH. Chu Cheng and Chu Jin fiercely glared at Chu Iwei, said nothing and left. Chu Iwei, it's not like I want to say it, but today you sided too much with that Chu Feng. Now you've done it. Not only did Chu Feng take 2 Saint Spirit grasses from us, we even got insulted by him. Now everyone left in anger. Are you happy now? Chu Wei reprimanded strictly. Chu Wei, just view it as my fault and don't blame him. In any case, Chu Feng is still part of our Chu family. Look, you've seen Chu Feng's strength. He isn't the trash in your eyes. Also, our Chu Alliance needs people now, so why not let him join? Listening to Chu Iwei say that, Chu Wei's face instantly changed. But as he was going to say something, A strange flicker appeared in his eyes, and at the end he sighed helplessly. "Ah, I can't do anything about you. Fine, I'll give Chu Feng another chance. Bring him tomorrow." "That's great, you're the best." Chu Iwei jumped excitedly, and her smile was especially splendid. "Okay, hurry up and rest early." Chu Wei shook his head and walked towards his own residence. "Chu Wei, you should also rest early." Chu Iwei smiled and waved at Chu Wei, then followed Chu Wei with her eyes as he left. Chu Wei allowing Chu Feng to enter the Chu alliance made Chu Iwei happy beyond her expectations. But what she didn't see was that the moment Chu Wei turned his body around, a sinister smile was formed by his mouth. Senior Chu Iwei, the one called Chu Feng, concealed himself quite deeply. "I've stayed in the outer court for so long, but I've never even heard his name before." It seems like he was aiming to be the first in the disciple exam. Just at that time, a young man walked over. He was the same as Chu Feng, also being a new disciple this year. He just joined the Chu alliance today. "You're correct. Chu Feng must have stayed in the outer court for the exam reward. I wonder if he got it or not." Listening to what he said, Chu Iwei also suddenly realized that. "Senior Chu Iwei, you're thinking too much. A fierce character appeared in this year's outer court, and that person got first place. Although Chu Feng has quite some strength, he cannot even be compared to that person." The young man smiled and said, "Fierce character? How fierce?" Chu Iwei curiously asked. "Extremely fierce. 1 rank 4 fierce beast, 9 rank 3 fierce beasts, 30 rank 2 fierce beasts were all slaughtered by that person within a blink." When the genius disciples of the outer court arrived, they only saw the fierce beast's corpse that filled the ground. "Isn't that amount of strength fierce? That's strong." At that instant, Chu Iwei's face was filled with shock. She also passed the inner court disciple exam, so she knew the power of the mechanism stage. She also knew about the terrifying fierce beasts. To be able to kill that many fierce beasts before people even arrived really made her imagine how strong that person was. It would require a person of at least the 5th level of the spirit realm to do that. Who's that person called? After being shocked, Chu Iwei also wanted to know the name of this fierce character. "Ah, I want to know as well." But sadly, that person intentionally hid their identity. After taking the reward, that person did not open the door out of the underground palace. Instead, that person concealed themselves so no one knew who that person was. The young man shook his head and left. "That person is quite strange, so strong yet so low-toned. Perhaps that person has a secret that cannot be told to other people." At that instant, Chu Iwei got more and more curious towards the so-called fierce character. It was because she knew that it might represent another genius disciple rising from the inner court. Oh no! But suddenly, Chu Iwei was suddenly alarmed because she thought of a strange scene that just happened. When Chu Cheng and Chu Zhen left, they did not head towards their own residence. The direction that they headed towards was the same road as Chu Feng. With that, Chu Iwei knew that something was wrong and quickly headed towards the same direction as Chu Feng. The inner court was extremely huge, and there was quite some distance between Chu Feng and Chu Iwei's residence. However, Chu Feng did not rush nor panic, and he slowly walked. He kept on going until he arrived to a desolate location. Then he stopped there. "Don't be so sneaky and come out." Chu Feng's gaze was cast towards a corner in the darkness. "You are quite alert. It seems that I've really underestimated you." Before even finishing his sentence, 2 familiar bodies walked out of the shadow. They were the brothers Chu Cheng and Chu Zhen. Chu Zhen's face was a lot better, but his anger did not decrease in the slightest. He even had thoughts of killing Chu Feng. "Chu Feng, I'll give you a chance. Hand over the 3 Saint Spirit grasses. Kneel in front of my brother, kowtow, and apologize. Then perhaps I'll forgive you." Chu Cheng glared at Chu Feng, and absolute confidence filled his tone. "What, you two want to rob me? So what if we rob you? You need strength to rob." "Strength? I'll tell you right now what strength is." Chu Cheng's body moved and strong wind rose behind him. In a blink, he arrived in front of Chu Feng. His hand was in a claw state, and he directly attacked Chu Feng's throat. It had to be mentioned that Chu Cheng's strength was several times stronger than Chu Zhen, and he was not weak even within the ranks of the fourth-level spirit realm. However, his opponent was Chu Feng, the fierce character that bare-handedly killed a rank 4 fierce beast. Asterisk whoosh asterisk Chu Feng dashed to the side and dodged Chu Cheng's attack. At the same time, one of his foot touched the ground. He suddenly spun, and after one rotation, his foot was retracted. Seeing that, Chu Cheng's face slightly changed and he hurriedly backed off. But sadly, not only were Chu Feng's feet abnormally quick, his positioning was accurate and there was no way to dodge it. As he panicked, Chu Cheng could only put both his arms together and forcefully block Chu Feng's attack. Asterisk bang asterisk asterisk tatata asterisk after the sweep of the leg, Chu Cheng was forced back several steps, and a numbing feeling continuously came from his arms. At that instant, Chu Cheng frowned slightly. No matter what, he did not think that Chu Feng would have such powerful strength. That strength completely exceeded his expectations, so he had to treat the fight seriously. You know your stuff, but with only a body of brute strength at the end, it is impossible to become useful. I let you experience the might of the martial skills. Asterisk papa papa asterisk ha. Chu Cheng continuously hit the acupuncture points of his body, and he suddenly yelled out loud. In an instant, his body expanded quite a bit, and his fists were also increased in size. Also, his skin turned from white to purple and veins emerged. It was quite frightening. A strengthening skill. Chu Feng squinted his eyes, and he could tell that Chu Cheng used some sort of strengthening skill. That kind of skill would not change the amount of skills one had, but their entire body would receive an upgrade. After cultivating to a certain point, one's body would not be invaded by the elements, nor can swords or spears pierce through the body. Their entire body would like a lethal weapon. He saw Chu Feng's change in expression, so Chu Cheng was instantly proud of himself. Although Chu Feng's strength was unexpected, he knew that Chu Feng's biggest weakness was that he did not cultivate any martial skills. The skill that he used was called Body of Steel. With that skill, one would be almost invincible while physically battling a person of the same level. So he had absolute confidence that he could defeat Chu Feng. Chu Feng, you can kneel down and beg for forgiveness, but not even letting him finish his words, Chu Feng's body flashed and disappeared. When Chu Feng reappeared, he arrived in front of Chu Cheng. A strong, heavy fist got bigger and bigger before in his eyes. Seeing that Chu Feng dared to battle with him physically, Chu Cheng sneered, and he also threw his fist out at Chu Feng's fist. Asterisk clang asterisk. With the collision of the two fists, a sound rang out, as if it was the collision of steel. But after that exchange, Chu Cheng got pushed back a few steps. The numb feeling did not decrease but rather increased on his fist, and he looked at Chu Feng, who was not even pushed half a step back. How is this guy's body so strong? Chu Cheng finally realized that something was wrong. With his current cultivated skills, there was pretty much no one that dared to meet his force with force in the same cultivation level. But right now, in front of his eyes, not only did Chu Feng meet force with force, he even had the advantage. That really made him feel that the situation was not good. Asterisk whoosh asterisk suddenly, Chu Feng's body dashed in front and he struck out with a single palm. He directly attacked Chu Cheng's right in front of him. Chu Cheng, who had 2 previous lessons, did not forcefully accept it. Instead, he aimed at Chu Feng's wrist and grabbed it. But it still wasn't time for Chu Cheng to be happy. He surprisingly found out that his hand grabbed onto nothing, and the palm that was heading straight for him also disappeared in the air. Asterisk thump asterisk. As he was surprised, an extremely powerful palm fiercely landed on his chest. Chu Feng's palm had a lot of power. Chu Cheng got pushed back beyond 10 meters, then fell on the ground while spraying out a mouthful of blood. That scene made the observing Chu Jin widen his eyes and mouth. No matter what, he wouldn't have thought that even the Chu Cheng that was in the 4th level of the spirit realm would be defeated by Chu Feng's hands. That already exceeded his bearable boundaries. After all, before, Chu Feng was a useless person that could not be more useless. How did this happen? At that time on Chu Cheng's face, other than pain, most of it was shock. He could not understand. He could not understand why he wasn't able to grab onto Chu Feng's wrist and got hit by him instead. Did he train in a skill? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He's only been in the inner court for 10 days. How is he able to use skills? Chu Cheng felt that what Chu Feng showed could not be martial skills, because within 10 days it was impossible to learn a martial skill. But if he knew that not only did Chu Feng use martial skills, it was even the strongest skill in the inner court, the illusionary. Palm, who knew how he would feel, he was really panicking. He only thought that if Chu Cheng could not defeat Chu Feng, he could only think of escaping. No need to leave so quickly, you two. But just at that time, Chu Feng appeared without even making a sound and blocked their path. Chu Feng, what are you doing? Chu Jin had a calm face on the surface, but he could not cover the fear in his heart. It was because the current Chu Feng was completely different from the Chu Feng in his memories. It was as though he was a completely different person. That change really terrified him. I'm not planning on anything, just take out all the things on you, kneel and beg for forgiveness, then I'll let you go. There was a small smile that hung on Chu Feng's face, but that smile made them even more frightened. Chu Feng, don't be excessive, Chu Cheng said while grinding his teeth. I'm excessive. You all said with your mouths that I'm garbage, humiliating and insulting me in front of others. You even followed me sneakily, and you wanted to rob me and beat me up. Now you say I'm excessive. I know that you don't see me as part of the Chu family, but that doesn't matter because I have never seen you as family either. Insulting me is fine, but to treat Chu Iwei like that is intolerable because Chu Iwei is family to me and she is one of the few people I want to protect. After saying that, Chu Feng's face suddenly turned cold and he extended his hands. With two sharp bangs, two clear slaps landed on Chu Cheng's and Chu Jin's face. Those two slaps were very powerful, and the two of them rigidly fell on the ground. After that, Chu Feng suddenly extended his leg and fiercely kicked Chu Cheng's chest. How's your mouth now? Weren't you able to force your logic? Weren't you very threatening? Why aren't you saying anything? Talk. Say, please forgive me. While Chu Feng was speaking, he slapped Chu Cheng 2 more times. After those 2 slaps, both of Chu Cheng's cheeks were left with 2 red palm marks, and a trace of blood flowed from his mouth. For me to beg to trash like you wish. Chu Cheng seemed very unyielding, but Chu Feng only smiled and started waving both his arms. Several slaps continuously landed on Chu Cheng's face. In that situation, Chu Cheng's cheeks quickly started swelling, and his head became a pig's head. Chu Feng, seeing that his own elder brother was cruelly hit by that, Chu Jin finally exploded. Move! Just with a wave of his huge sleeve, and with a slap, Chu Jin laid on the ground, without even having strength to climb back up. That instant, Chu Jin truly understood the difference between him and Chu Feng. So it turned out, he really couldn't even take one attack from Chu Feng. Chu Feng, kill me if you dare. Chu Cheng revealed a sinister glare and started bellowing. You think I don't? As he said that, Chu Feng took a dagger from Chu Cheng's waist, aimed it at his dantian and said, I will count to 1. If you don't beg for forgiveness, I'll destroy your dantian and you won't be able to cultivate anymore in your life. You dare. Hearing Chu Feng words, Chu Cheng's face instantly changed. There was no more sinisterness, and replacing that was incomparable fear. He felt the same as Chu Jin. He also thought that the Chu Feng in front of him was completely different from the Chu Feng in his memories. He could really not be sure whether or not Chu Feng would destroy his dantian, or whether or not he would kill him. Chu Feng smiled, but his smile was very malicious. He raised the dagger up high and spit a single word out very faintly. 1. Asterisk whoosh asterisk. Before he even finished speaking, Chu Feng's dagger suddenly descended. I was wrong. I was wrong, Chu Feng, I was wrong. Please forgive me, please. Don't destroy my cultivation, please don't. Chu Cheng yelled out as if he was crazy, and his sounds carried some sobbing noises. With that, Chu Feng also stopped his movements with a bit of shock and smiled, While looking at the current Chu Feng, he discovered that Chu Feng had his eyes closed. 2 rows of tears were rushing out, and his mouth kept on asking for forgiveness. Not only was his expression painful, his entire body was trembling, and underneath, there was even a huge puddle with a nasty smell emitted from it. Chu Feng threw the dagger on the floor, searched around Chu Feng and Chu Jin's body, and finally he found 5 low-quality spiritual medicines, ground spirit grass. After doing that, Chu Feng went in front of Chu Feng, lightly patted his face and said, "Look at yourself. Who is the actual garbage? You should now know that clearly in your heart." Ha ha. After saying that, Chu Feng laughed and left gracefully. But before they left for long, a beautiful face walked out from the darkness. It was Chu Iwei. However, Chu Iwei's sweet face was already filled with astonishment. After quite a while, she muttered to herself, "Chu Feng, what kind of person are you and what kind of strength do you have?" Suddenly, she closed her eyes, and she remembered the young Chu Feng. No matter how much people mocked him, he never mocked back. No matter how much people humiliated him, he never attacked back. A smile was always on his face, and it made people feel pity. It made people feel sorry for him. It made people want to protect him. Finally, Chu Iwei opened her eyes and she suddenly smiled. "Perhaps we were wrong by looking at you as a weak person. Perhaps this is the real you. You don't need the protection of others because you are strong enough to protect others." At that moment, Chu Feng already returned to his own residence. He took out the 3 Saint Spirit grasses and the 5 ground spirit grasses out. Although the ground spirit grasses were only low-quality spiritual medicine, they were still precious items for cultivation. Chu Feng felt that by taking them away, it was enough to make Chu Feng and Chu Jin feel pained. When he thought of the brothers who always humiliated him, just got a lesson given by him, Chu Feng felt extremely refreshed. It seems that there's a correct saying. Against an evil person you need a grindstone for an evil person. To talk reason to an evil person requires one to use their fists. Chu Feng smiled but didn't rush and start cultivating. He took out his elder brother's letter. He opened the letter and rows of familiar characters appeared in front of him. It was Chu Gaia's handwriting. "Brother, 5 years has passed since you entered the Azure Dragon School, and we haven't met each other in 5 years as well. After a few more days, the annual family gathering will arrive, and this year, the head of the family will retire from his position. With his retirement, we need to elect the new head of the family, and Father is one of the candidates. To Father, this is an extremely important day, so I hope that you can return in this year's gathering and cheer for Father along with me." Although there were only a few lines of words, the meaning was passed on. Chu Feng thought deeply about the letter's contents. Every year in the family gathering, the young generation of the Chu family would have a martial exchange competition to test the results of their cultivation. Although it was only test on the surface, in reality, it showed the potential of the younger generation, and it also decided the position of the older generation in the family. This time, Chu Yuan was able to get the qualifications as a candidate, because not only did he have strong power, he also had an absolute relationship between Chu Guyu. Within the young generation of the Chu family, he was the only person able to enter the Lingyun school. He pretty much was able to get first in all the family competitions. His potential was very huge, so naturally, it affected Chu Yuan's position. After some thought, Chu Feng found a pen and paper, then started to write the reply letter to Chu Guyu. The content was very simple. This year, he would go the family gathering, because Chu Feng also wanted to help out in his father's election. He wanted to demonstrate his abilities in the family competition and at least get a decent position. That way, he could let everyone know that both of Chu Yuan's sons were not mediocre. Or in other words, Chu Feng felt that the time to prove himself had arrived. After writing the letter, Chu Feng completely refined the 3 Saint Spirit grasses and the 5 ground spirit grasses. That time, Chu Feng finally felt a full feeling in his dantian. With his estimation, after refining another 20 Saint Spirit grasses, he may be able to have a breakthrough. However, those 20 Saint Spirit grasses would cost an astounding amount. Therefore, he put all his hopes in tomorrow's spiritual medicine hunt. The next morning arrived, and the sky just started getting bright. But in the huge plaza at the north of the Azure Dragon School, over 10,000 people were gathered there. It was one of the entrances to the spiritual medicine mountain. Chu Feng carried 2 bags. One was full of food, the other was completely empty. He was looking all around in the crowd and trying to find Chu Iwei. Chu Feng here. He heard a familiar sound, and Chu Iwei was indeed nearby. She was happily waving her hands at Chu Feng. Compared to Chu Feng's equipment, Chu Iwei was a lot simpler. She only brought a waist purse, and she had the same as the clothing as yesterday. Chu Iwei, you're not bringing food. The spiritual medicine hunt spans for a whole 10 days. What are you going to eat? Chu Feng had a face of confusion on. Idiot, don't forget that we are an organization. I'm only responsible for chasing the spiritual medicine. Rough work like carrying food would of course be done by other people. As Chu Iwei said that, she pointed to some place. The members of the Chu Alliance were there, and Chu Feng had seen them yesterday. Indeed, 3 of them carried a huge bag, and those must have been for food. Chu Feng, there are different teams for hunting the spiritual medicine. After entering the mountain, we split into 3 groups. In every group, some are responsible for carrying food, some are responsible for surrounding the spiritual medicine, and I am responsible for hunting the spiritual medicine. The division of work was determined by strength, and the division of spiritual medicine was also divided like that. Chu Iwei explained in detail to Chu Feng. With that, Chu Feng had a deeper understanding in spiritual medicine hunting, and he also learnt the benefits of group hunting. Before being picked, the spiritual medicine had their spiritual nature so they could escape. Without an absolute strength, it was really too hard to try and catch spiritual medicines by yourself. That was also why a large portion of the disciples would choose to enter an alliance. It was because, with strength such as theirs, the group power was indeed stronger than their personal power. After describing the methods of hunting the spiritual medicine, Chu Iwei brought Chu Feng to the crowd of the Chu Alliance. After getting near, Chu Feng found out that there was one less person than yesterday. That person was exactly Chu Cheng. Yesterday, Chu Cheng was beaten extremely badly by Chu Feng. His entire face became a pig head, so he must have had no face to see anyone. That was why he abandoned his chance in the rare spiritual medicine hunt. Other than Chu Cheng, Chu Feng also saw another familiar person, and it was Chu Jin. But the current Chu Jin did not have the former arrogance. He lowered his head and said nothing, seemingly having received a huge blow, and it seemed extremely depressing. I, Chu Feng, am present as the last member here. Everyone welcome Chu Feng. Clap, asterisk papapa. Asterisk after Chu Iwei brought Chu Feng there, she cheered and clapped. Seeing that, the several Chu Alliance members who were not part of the Chu family also clapped to welcome him and nodded at Chu Feng. They had seen Chu Feng's strength yesterday, and no matter how the Chu family saw Chu Feng as, at least they approved of Chu Feng in their hearts. But other than Chu Iwei and the others, the Chu family disciples did not do anything, and their gazes towards Chu Feng were extremely ill. Chu Iwei, what are you doing? You brought an outsider like him to our Chu Alliance. Hurry up and get him lost. Chu Wei suddenly angrily yelled. That's right, the Chu Alliance does not welcome him. Get him lost. At the same time, the other people also started yelling. Their voices were very loud, as if they were intentionally doing that to let everyone around them hear it. Indeed, they really did attract the attention of the people around them. At that instant, Chu Feng frowned. He never would have thought that Chu Wei would welcome him like that. How was that even welcoming? It was obvious to humiliate him, especially in front of all the disciples around him. Chu Wei, what are you doing? Didn't you say yesterday? At that instant, Chu Iwei panicked and she didn't know what to do. Chu Iwei, shut up. What I say in this Chu Alliance goes. I can accept anyone, but absolutely not Chu Feng. Chu Wei didn't even give Chu Iwei the chance to finish talking. Chu Wei, I never would have thought you. Fine, since you don't accept me, I will back out. Chu Iwei finally got herself together. She knew that she was used by Chu Wei to cause Chu Feng to be in such a difficult situation. Chu Iwei, I'm afraid that you have no say in this. Unless you want to leave the Chu family, you cannot leave the Chu alliance. Chu Wei coldly smiled, as if he already guessed that Chu Iwei would have this reaction. You are simply. Chu Iwei was grinding her teeth in anger, yet she didn't know what to do. She could only helplessly cast her gaze at Chu Feng. Chu Feng, Chu Iwei, no need to explain. I know that this can't be blamed on you. Chu Feng's face was very calm, and as he scanned over Chu Wei and the others, he said, your Chu alliance isn't accepting me right. Fine, that's fine. Remember what you said today. I guarantee that one day I will make you regret everything that you've done today. Ha ha ha, what a joke. You think you're some big shot. We will regret. You think you're worth something for us to regret over. That's right, who do you think you are? Shameless. They didn't even put Chu Feng's words into their hearts. In their eyes, Chu Feng was only a useless person, because from when he was little, they already imprinted a mark like that on Chu Feng. This place is quite lively. But just at that time, a clear voice suddenly resounded. Everyone looked over, and they only saw two young men slowly walking over. They were a pair of twin brothers. Their purple, long-sleeved clothing were very dirty, and it was so dirty that you could even see the oily shine. The two of them were holding sugar canes, and while chewing, they continuously made ear-piercing noises, and it was really annoying. However, when everyone saw the badges on their chest, not one of them was not surprised. On the badge, there was a pair of wings. It was the symbol of the strongest alliance in the inner court, the Wings Alliance. It's the Dragon and Tiger brothers of the Wings Alliance. At that moment, many people recognized those people, and all sorts of cries endlessly rang out. The male disciples revealed a respectful expression, while the female disciples were screaming like they loved those two people. Even Chu Iwei's face became heavier. Chu Iwei, you recognize them? Chu Feng asked curiously. Their names are Bai Long and Bai Hu. They are the same age as me, 16 years old. Tien, Bai is white, Long is dragon, Hu is tiger. They entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as me, but they passed the inner court disciple exam at the age of 12, and they even placed first at that exam. According to rumors, they've already entered the 6th level of the spirit realm 1 year ago. They are real genius disciples. Chu Iwei had a solemn expression while talking about those two, and it showed that those two were very important in Chu Iwei's heart. 6th level of the spirit realm at the age of 16. After hearing Chu Iwei's words, Chu Feng also reevaluated the Dragon and Tiger brothers, because he knew that his elder brother Chu Guyu entered the 6th level of the spirit realm at the age of 17, and was considered to be a genius. Those two were a whole year younger than Chu Guyu, and it really showed that the members of the Wings Alliance were not ordinary people. No wonder they were viewed as the Alliance of Legends. They seemed to be walking towards us. We didn't offend them, did we? As they saw that their target was them, everyone in the Chu Alliance started getting nervous, and Chu Wei was no exception. After all, the names of the brothers were too well known. Even without their status of being in the Wings Alliance, their shine could not be covered. They did not dare to offend those kinds of people, because if they did, it meant that they were sentenced to death in the inner court. But as they got closer, the crowd finally breathed a sigh of relief, because they found out that their target was Chu Feng. You are Chu Feng. Bai Long looked up and down at Chu Feng. Problem? Chu Feng calmly replied. Oh. Hearing Chu Feng's response, Bai Hu couldn't help but frown and also started to judge Chu Feng. This is great. The Dragon and Tiger brothers were looking for Chu Feng. HMPH, he just entered the inner court and he offended the brothers. Well deserved. Let's see how he's going to die this time. At that instant, the members of the Chu family were all happy. They all wanted Chu Feng to offend some big shot and then get killed by them. Who would have thought that Chu Feng actually did offend the Dragon and Tiger brothers? It really made them quite joyful. However, the next words that the brothers said instantly astounded them. Chu Feng, Interested in joining the Wings Alliance? Wait, I think I heard that they just said. Impossible, you must have heard wrong. The words from the dragon and tiger brothers astonished the observing crowd, and all sorts of complicated expressions surged onto their faces. At that instant, the people around them would rather think that they heard wrong than believing that the words were true. They could not understand why the Wings Alliance wanted to recruit Chu Feng. Just now, Chu Feng was even rejected by a small alliance. How could such a person get the respect of the Wings Alliance? Chu Feng, are you willing to join the Wings Alliance? They knew that the crowd was suspicious, so Bai Long forcefully added another sentence and emphasized the tone. Is this real? The Wings Alliance is actually recruiting that guy. Where did he come from to get the invitation from the Wings Alliance? Isn't the Wings Alliance called the Gathering of Geniuses? Why are they recruiting such an ordinary person? Not understandable. Really not understandable. Does he have a certain special area? But I really can't see anything. Even a small little alliance isn't welcoming him. How can he be someone strong? With that, discussions instantly exploded everywhere like frying oil, and all the gazes concentrated on Chu Feng. They all tried to find what was different about him, to be able to be invited by the Wings Alliance. But no matter what, they could not see how that youth was different. But even so, everyone still endlessly admired Chu Feng. The Wings Alliance, the place that countless amounts of disciples looked forward to, and also where countless number of geniuses were refused. It was absolutely the sacred land of the hearts of the inner court disciples. The Wings Alliance, the dreams of endless number of disciples. It was a dream that could only be imagined and unaccomplishable. But at that instant, there was a person that entered the sacred land and completed the unachievable dreams of others. How could they not envy him? How is this possible? Chu Feng, he actually. But the ones who had the ugliest faces and the people that could not accept that the most were the people from the Chu family, especially Chu Wei. It was as if he got hit by a heavy hammer. His entire brain was buzzing as he was completely bewildered. Chu Iwei was also like that. She stood next to Chu Feng, opened her little mouth, and her pair of eyes were flickering non-stop while surprisingly staring at Chu Feng. Towards the reactions of the crowd, the dragon and tiger brothers smiled since they were pleased. Then they cast their gaze towards Chu Feng. Compared than the reactions of the crowd, the brothers looked forward to Chu Feng's reaction more. They wanted to see Chu Feng celebrate as if he was crazy and as if he entered a dream. But Chu Feng obviously disappointed them. He was not overjoyed by ecstasy. Rather, he did not show any expressions, and his face was as calm as the water. The more surprising thing was Chu Feng's words that came out next. Thank you for your good meanings, but I do not want to join in any alliances for now. Chu Feng said calmly. What? I did not hear wrong, right? He refused. When Chu Feng's words came out, the crowd that was already like a boiling pot of oil instantly rose to the extreme. The good thing that countless of people wished to have in their dreams was refused. It was absolutely unthinkable. After getting that reply, the dragon and tiger brothers also frowned, and their faces were obviously displeased. Chu Feng, if you join our Wings Alliance, you will only have benefits in your future development in the Azure Dragon School. Are you really going to refuse? Bai Long advised and asked. I am very sorry. Chu Feng's reply was firm. Bai Hu was a bit angry, but before letting him break out, he was stopped by Bai Long's extended hands. Bai Long reevaluated Chu Feng once again and said, Chu Feng, I hope that you can reconsider this. After that, Bai Long turned around and left. After a fierce glare by Bai Hu, he also left in huge strides. That guy really refused the invitation of the Wings Alliance. Is he stupid? Looking at him, you can tell that he did not even think about it, so he must not know the big name of the Wings Alliance. Ah, what a shame. I'm guessing in the future, when he understands the strength of the Wings Alliance, he would be extremely frustrated. Future. If you offend the Wings Alliance, from what I can tell, this guy is not far from death. In that instant, Everyone widened their mouths, and the sounds of all sorts of discussions continued without end. Even Chu Iwei had a full face of confusion as she asked, "Chu Feng, did you know what you just did?" "That was, I know, it was the Wings Alliance, the organization of legends within the inner court. You knew yet you still refused you." Chu Iwei was absolutely speechless. "I will not enter an alliance that I don't understand anything about. I'm afraid that the Wings Alliance are no exception." Chu Feng smiled, and his smile was abnormally calm. Not caring about the astonished gazes from all around him, he elegantly blended into the crowd, as if he never even put the Wings Alliance in his eyes. Chu Iwei kept on looking at the place where Chu Feng disappeared at. Her expression was extremely complicated, and after a good while she muttered, "Chu Feng, it seems that I am able to see through you less and less." Actually, Chu Feng was also surprised by the Wings Alliance's invitation as well, but because it was unexpected, he firmly refused. After all, there was a secret that others could not know in his body, the nine-colored lightning, the scary thing that almost destroyed the continent. If people knew that the thing was inside Chu Feng's dantian, who knew what the experts of the world would do to Chu Feng? It was even a possibility that he would get his stomach cut open. After a short while, in a mysterious place outside of the plaza, the dragon and tiger brothers were standing there with a depressed expression. In front of them was a young female. The girl had fair skin, sharp eyebrows, large eyes, a small mouth which was as red as a cherry. Although her face was a bit young, it could be said that she was a beautiful person, and a person that just slightly undeveloped. But at that moment, the young female's eyebrows were frowning as she asked the brothers, "You are saying that he refused to join the Wings Alliance?" "Senior Sume, everything that we said was true," the brothers replied at the same time. "There is actually a person that dares to refuse the invitation of our Wings Alliance. He must be tired with living." The girl was biting her lips, and there were traces of anger that surged within her beautiful eyes. "Senior Sume, to be honest, we don't even know which part that boy was outstanding at, but he was mentioned by those two, and they told us to invite him. If we do anything bad to him, I'm afraid." "What's there to be afraid of? We are already giving him face by inviting him to the Wings Alliance. But now he dared to refuse. We gave him face, but he just didn't take it. If we don't let him taste a bit of pain, where's the honor of our Wings Alliance? I'll hand this issue to you too. Don't worry with my elder sister, I guarantee that nothing will happen to you too." Fine. The dragon and tiger brothers didn't dare to retort a single bit while in front of the beautiful young girl. "Also, I'll say it for the last time, don't call me a senior. My age is no older than yours." After casting a gaze to the two people, she left. The brothers silently watched as the young girl went farther and farther away all the way, until she was completely gone. Only then did they exhale deeply as if a weight had been lifted. "This little girl is too hard to serve. She is treating us like slaves," Baihu complained as he wiped the sweat on his forehead. "Whatever. We can't do anything about her special family status. Ignoring her family background, it would be enough just by looking at her elder sister's inner court influence." Bai Long bitterly said, "On that topic, I like her sister better. At least she's a lot more gentle." "Gentle? You just haven't seen her when she gets violent. It's even more scary than Sume." "Ah, the combination of these two sisters are called Raume. There's the beauty, but I haven't found the gentleness. But what should we do now? Do we really need to take care of that Chu Feng?" Tien, the Ru, from Su Ro, means gentle, and the Mei, from Su Mei, means beauty. Let's give him an appropriate warning, but we can't be too excessive. After all, other than the sisters, that person also spoke. After saying that, Bai Long couldn't help but sigh deeply. Yesterday, in the Rare Wings Alliance gathering, two big shots showed up without being invited. Also, those two gave the same request, and it was to have the Wings Alliance invite Chu Feng. Although they were not willing to, the Wings Alliance still agreed because those two people were existences that they did not dare to offend. The Spiritual Medicine Mountain was a forbidden land. The entire mountain had layers of seals. Unless one had flying abilities, They could only enter the spiritual medicine mountain from the entrance. There were 8 entrances in the spiritual medicine mountain, and all 8 entrances had elders guarding there. Only at the time of the spiritual medicine hunt would they be opened. At that instant, all 8 entrances opened. The inner court disciples who had a token could enter, and almost 100,000 disciples came in from all directions. This spiritual medicine mountain is quite the mysterious place. Chu Feng wandered around in the spiritual medicine mountain. His gaze was attracted to the huge, sky-covering trees and the dense bushes. It was the first time that he saw such beautiful plants. Even the fragrances of the flowers were very dense, and the otherworldly scene intoxicated him. Ground spirit grass. Suddenly, Chu Feng saw a strange plant. It had a height of 5 inches with 4 leaves, entirely green, and it was covered with faint light. It was the low-rank ground spirit grass. Poo asterisk, but before even getting close, the ground spirit grass contracted and prepared to escape. Whoosh asterisk, seeing that, Chu Feng suddenly leaped, but he was 1 step too slow. The ground spirit grass already burrowed into the ground when he arrived. These things really do have a spiritual nature. Chu Feng dryly laughed, but he was not impatient. He scanned around with his gaze. He knew that the ground spirit grass could escape underground, but after a certain distance, they must return to the surface, and the escaping direction was usually straight. So, Chu Feng felt that as long as he confirmed the escaping tracks of the ground spirit grass, it was not difficult to catch them. With his speed, whoosh asterisk, just at that time, a light flashed, and a ground spirit grass came out of the ground. It was obviously the same one that just escaped, but just as the ground spirit grass revealed itself, it suddenly burrowed back into the ground and continued escaping. Chu Feng rejoiced, and he strided over several steps, then leaped into the air like a sly rabbit. His hands formed into an eagle's claw, and he grabbed at the empty space in front of him. Whoosh asterisk, just as Chu Feng predicted. As he landed on the ground spirit grass came out from the ground again. But this time, Chu Feng was faster than it. He did not give any chance for it to escape. Chu Feng's big hands tightly grabbed onto its branches and pulled it out of the ground. Jijiji asterisk, when the ground spirit grass disconnected from the ground, it started making ear-piercing noises, and a wave of strong, struggling power kept on coming from it. But that struggle only lasted for a short while before it got weaker and weaker. At the end, the ground spirit grass glow flashed. Then it started to decrease in size. At the end, it was almost as big as a finger. This thing is really quite strange. When the spiritual medicine left the soil, it would lose its spiritual nature, and the spiritual medicine that had no spiritual nature would have a very small body. But those were only rumors. When a ground spirit grass which was 5 inches long changed into not even half an inch long, anyone would feel surprise when they saw that in front of their face. After taking care of the ground spirit grass, Chu Feng layered his hands and did a hand seal. Strong absorbing power surged from his dantian, and within a blink, it completely refined the ground spirit grass that was in his palm. These things aren't even enough for you to fill the crack in your teeth. Chu Feng bitterly smiled. The ground spirit grass was only a low-rank spiritual medicine, and the spiritual energy inside it was several times worse than the saint spirit grass. He would need quite a terrifying amount if he relied on it to feed the divine lightning. As it couldn't be helped, Chu Feng continued wandering and went straight into the deep parts of the mountain forest. The spiritual medicine mountain was divided into the inner circle, middle circle, and outer circle. The outer circle had the low-quality spiritual medicines. The middle circle had the medium-quality spiritual medicines, and the inner circle had the high-quality spiritual medicines. Chu Feng was more familiar with the high-quality spiritual medicine, Saint Spirit grass, but he also knew that the Saint Spirit grasses were not kind when they still had their spiritual nature. Not only did they escape when they saw people, they even had extremely strong attack power. According to rumors, One Saint Spirit grass was comparable to a rank 6 fierce beast. It also meant that without being in the 6th level of the spirit realm, you would not be able to defeat it. That was why the inner circle was viewed as a forbidden area, and very few people dared to enter it. Chu Feng also didn't plan to hunt those scary guys, so his goal was the middle circle. The medium-quality spiritual medicine was the sky spirit grass. According to legends, it could stick to and quickly run across the ground. It even had the ability to become invisible, so it was very hard to catch. But luckily, it didn't have any killing power. Although the spiritual energy that it contained was incomparable to the Saint Spirit grass, it was still far away from the ground spirit grass. So that was why catching it was Chu Feng's best goal for this time. He kept on going, and all the ground spirit grasses that Chu Feng saw along the road were not able to escape his demonic grasp, and they were even refined at the scene. When it was noon, he finally reached the middle circle and he quickly found one sky spirit grass. However, the sky spirit grass was very impressive. Not only could it change its route of escape, it really did have the ability to become invisible. Although the invisibility only lasted for a short while, Chu Feng always suffered when it did. Straight until the sun started setting in the west, Chu Feng saw at least a dozen of sky spirit grasses, but he didn't even catch one. I do not believe that I will lose to a medium-quality spiritual medicine. Although Chu Feng was still vigorous even after running for the entire day, he was helpless when his stomach started drumming, so he could only stop to fill himself up. As he ate the rations, he did not forget about his ridicule by the sky spirit grasses, and he swore to catch the sky spirit grass and to refine them. Like I said, don't come to the middle circle. These sky spirit grass aren't something that we can catch. Miss, no need to rush. I've already slowly grasped onto the escaping patterns of the sky spirit grass. Give me one more day and I'll guarantee that we can catch it. One day. In one day, how many ground spirit grasses can we catch in the outer circle? You are simply wasting our time. Just at that time, broken words came from the forest and Chu Feng could feel that at least 10 people were coming close. Heh, it looks I'm not the only one who's suffering. Chu Feng chuckled, but didn't even raise his head to look and ate the rations in his hands with huge bites. Miss, look, that seems to be Chu Feng. But when a surprised, yet also full of mock voice sounded, Chu Feng knew that he met a damn acquaintance. He raised his and looked. 10 silhouettes were staring at him, and all of them were familiar faces. The young female that was leading was called Chu Xianxia. She was 1 year younger than Chu Feng, and she could be said to be Chu Feng's cousin. Although Chu Xianxia was not as sweet and beautiful as Chu Iwei, she still had a few points of looks, especially her snow-white skin which matched her name. Tien. Zhu means snow, but she was the same as Chu Cheng and Chu Zhen. She didn't like Chu Feng from when they were young, and she belonged to the enemy force. Behind Chu Xianxia were 9 people. Although they had the surname of Chu, strictly saying, they weren't part of the Chu family. They were the servants of the Chu family. But because their parents had some status in the Chu family, they entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time. But the funny thing was even those people looked down at Chu Feng. Oh, it's you, Chu Feng. The repulsive voice sounded again, and it turned out that the person who spoke was a tall and skinny youth that stood next to Chu Xianxia. Chu Feng also recognized that person. He was called Chu Gao, and from when he was young, he liked to stick next to Chu Xianxia. He was Chu Xianxia's shadow. The thing worth mentioning was that, although Chu Gao had the status of a servant, his talent wasn't bad, and he entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as Chu Iwei, and he was also level 4 in the spirit realm as well. In Chu Xianxia's group, Chu Gao's strength was decent, so it was obvious that he was the main power in this group. But that guy was not reliable. Seeing as he brought Chu Xianxia and the others into the middle circle, one could tell that he was a person who bit off more than he could chew. I say, Chu Feng, you're no good either. You don't even have anything after a full day. As she saw Chu Feng's dried-out bag, Chu Xianxia sneered and digged at the hardships. Is that so? With the 10 of you all together, it doesn't seem that you are any better than me. Chu Feng scanned with his gaze and seeing the same dried-out bags on Chu Shui's side, he mocked. I really don't understand what Chu Wei is thinking. He put the 10 of you useless people in one ground, and the 10 useless people ran to the middle circle. Are you guys here for camping? You have enough rations. Nonsense. Hearing Chu Feng's words, Chu Shui got agitated and angered. The 9 other servants on the side were also not in a good mood, especially that Chu Gao. He even pointed at Chu Feng and yelled, "If you dare to be any more unrespectful to my family's miss, I'll cripple you. If you feel you can, then come and try." Chu Feng cast a glance of disdain at Chu Gao, then looked down and continued to eat his rations. "You think I don't dare?" As Chu Gao spoke, he aggressively ran over to Chu Feng. Swirling wind rose from under his feet and swept the huge leaves up. He completely displayed the power of the 4th level of the spirit realm. But just as Chu Gao got close to Chu Feng suddenly raised his head, and a pair of chilling eyes shot out like a sharp knife as if stabbing into Chu Gao's eyes. At that instant, Chu Gao immediately stopped walking and also quickly retreated 2 steps back. The instant that he saw Chu Feng's gaze, he felt something. The power of deterrence. That deterrence made Chu Gao feel a chill in his spine. He panicked in his heart because he had felt that deterrence before, and someone who was able to make him feel something like that was an extremely scary person. Although he also felt that it was unimaginable when it came from Chu Feng, who was also at the 4th level of the spirit realm, and just entered the inner court. That deterrence told him that he could not fight with Chu Feng. After deeply swallowing his saliva, Chu Gao instantly turned around and ran back. That scene really made Chu Shui and the others not know what to do. Why did he return without even fighting? Wasn't that a bit too embarrassing? If they knew that Chu Gao was scared by Chu Feng's eye expression alone, they would have felt that they lost even more face. "Chu Gao, what happened to you?" Chu Shui lashed out angrily. "Miss, I..." Chu Gao didn't know how to respond. "Useless trash." Looking at Chu Gao's weak look, Chu Shui angrily bit her teeth, but she didn't know what to do. At the end, she could only fiercely say to Chu Feng, "Chu Feng, you've really grown up. Did you forget that you got beaten up by Hong Fei when you were young? Let me warn you, you better never return to the Chu family, or else I'll have Hong Fei beat you up even more." After hearing Chu Shui's words, Chu Feng suddenly clenched both his hands, and the rations in his hands were completely crushed into powder. A gale with him as the core started swirling, and it blew Chu Shui and others continuously back. Even Chu Gao had difficulty resisting. Chu Hongfei, a person that heavily humiliated Chu Feng before. Chu Feng would never forget. The him who was only 8 years old was beaten up by the 10-year-old Chu Hongfei to the point in which he couldn't stand up. Chu Feng had stayed in bed for an entire half a month. The important thing was later on, when Chu Guyu went and found Chu Hanfei. Even Chu Guyu was beaten badly. That thing became a thorn in Chu Feng's heart. A thorn that would always be painful if it was not pulled out. Chu Feng slowly raised his head, and a dense, cold aura spread from his pair of eyes. He said with an extremely cold tone to Chu Shui, "Chu Shui, tell Chu Hanfei that I will return in this year's gathering. Make sure that he does the preparations for kneeling and begging. And now, you all better immediately disappear from my sight, or else I will make you regret it." If they were under normal circumstances, Chu Shui would certainly talk back to Chu Feng, but now she did not have that courage to do that. At that moment, the aura that Chu Feng was emitting was enough to make her legs weak and body tremble. She knew that this feeling was called fear. At the end, Chu Shui did not say anything back, and turned around then went further into the mountains and forest. As for Chu Gao and the others, they also quickly followed, because they were the same as Chu Shui, as they were unable to resist against Chu Feng's aura. After Chu Shui and the others left, Chu Feng plainly packed up and continued. He knew that Chu Hongfei was not an oil-saving lamp. Not only was he best at fighting within the Chu family back in the days, even today, He was barely behind Chu Guyu. Chu Hongfei was from the Chu family, and other than Chu Guyu, he was the only other person who was able to get into a first-rate school. To be able to get accepted by a first-rate school already showed his talent in martial cultivation. Ever since Chu Hongfei entered the school, he hadn't returned back in the Chu family, so no one knew what kind of strength he had. However, Chu Feng felt that this year, Chu Hongfei would likely return back. After all, his own father was one of the candidates. As for Chu Hongfei's talent, even if he didn't reach the 6th level of the spirit realm, he would be at least the 5th level. So Chu Feng must quickly raise his strength and at least reach the 5th level of the spirit realm. Ah, don't touch me tilde tilde tilde. But before Chu Feng walked far, a sharp scream came from the forest. That voice belonged to Chu Shui. At that instant, Chu Feng frowned, and after some hesitation, he ran towards the direction of the sound. At the same time, in an empty area in the mountains, an unbearable scene was happening. Chu Gao and the other 9 people were shivering, while standing on the side with faces full of fear. In the empty space in the middle, Chu Shui was being toyed around by 3 men. Those 3 people were aged 20 or so, and their faces were extremely vulgar. But behind their body, a black iron sword was on their back. They were members of the Sword Alliance. Junior, no need to be afraid. We have no ill intentions, and we just want to chat a bit with you. One of the males, who had a full face of pockmarks, was pulling on Chu Shui's purple clothes. One sleeve was already torn by him, and it revealed her snow-white skin. Hee, this is quite white. I like tender girls like this. The other 2 were also touching Chu Shui's body. Their eyes shined and they were already drooling from their mouth. We are from the same school. Aren't you afraid that the elders will punish you if you treat me like this? Chu Shui's face was already full of tears as she struggled without strength. Junior, we are protecting you. The elders don't even have enough time to praise us, so why would they even punish us? That's right, following useless people like them will only land you in more danger. It's still better to follow us, and when the hunt ends, we will give you some rewards. Hee. It was already night and the 3 of them were extremely lonely. Just at that time, they found a little sheep like Chu Shui. How could they let that chance go? Seniors, please let our families miss go. Chu Gao begged while trembling. Whoosh before even finishing his sentence, one of the Sword Alliance members pulled out his black iron sword, waved it at Chu Gao, and a strong wind flew in front Chu Gao's body. Poof after that strong wind. A bloody wound appeared on top of Chu Gao's legs, and with a poof, he kneeled on the ground. 5th level of the spirit realm. Seeing that, the Chu family crowd backed away from fear. To be able to use the wind as a blade and to defeat Chu Gao in one strike was, without a doubt, the cultivation power of the 5th level in the spirit realm. Get lost right now and I'll let you live. When that person pointed the cold, glittering iron sword at Chu Gao and the others, killing intent was revealed in his tone. As they faced the life threats, the Chu family and the others' feelings were shook, and some people even started moving back. Although Chu Shui was their master, and they had mountains of favors towards the Chu family, their choice was actually very simple when the decision related to their own life. All of you. Chu Shui's heart had some unspeakable bitterness when she saw the servants thinking about abandoning her. From a young age, they were people that stayed by her side and followed all of the orders since then. She wanted to scold, yet she was so helpless because she knew that she was already done for. In the Azure Dragon School, she had no influence nor power, and against the people that she could not offend, even if she was tainted. She could only endure it since she still didn't want to die. Whoosh but just as Chu Shui was despairing, a shadow leaped out from the forest like a monster and landed in front of Chu Shui. Bang after landing, that person attacked with lightning speed. Countless afterimages of the palm brought killing intent with them, and they flew straight towards the 3 people from the Sword Alliance. Whoosh. It surprised the 3 Sword Alliance members when they saw such a sudden change. They tapped the ground with the tip of their toe and suddenly leaped back. They focused their eyes, and the three of them discovered that the person whose surprise attacked them was a young man. But the person who was the most astonished was Chu Shue. She would have never thought, when the people whom she trusted the most had thoughts of abandoning her, Chu Feng would be standing in front of her while ignoring his own safety. "Who are you? You dare to interrupt my good occasion?" The Sword Alliance member, who had a full face of pockmarks, pointed at Chu Feng while angrily yelling, "You are not fit to know my name, but you can call me Justice." Chu Feng faintly smiled. "Justice, huh?" The pockmarked male moved the iron sword in his hands, and countless of wind blades flew at Chu Feng. Seeing that, Chu Feng pushed with one of his palms, and a warm force pushed Chu Shue out of the way. After that, he quickly dodged, and after dodging the attack, he ran straight at the male and struck out with one illusionary palm. "Brat, you're looking for death." Seeing that Chu Feng even dared to counterattack, the other two Sword Alliance members also pulled out their iron swords from their back and stabbed at Chu Feng with some strange sword style. Asterisk whoosh whoosh asterisk. Not only did Chu Feng not dodge, he changed his attacking style, and all three illusionary palms stuck at the same time, making the three iron swords collide into each other. Asterisk clang 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 asterisk 3. Heavy sounds resonated, and the four people stepped back a bit. But from Chu Feng's palms, a numbing feeling came from it. Chu Feng also frowned, and his expression became more heavy. He knew that the three of them were experts of the 5th level of the spirit realm, and they didn't even use their full power. The three Sword Alliance members also frowned. They already found out that Chu Feng was in the 4th level of the spirit realm. But when a little child who was in the 4th level was able to knock the three of them back, it meant that they could not underestimate the strength of the little child. "Boy, we are complete strangers. You don't need to offend our Sword Alliance for some people you don't know." "That's right. I see that you have quite some talent. As long as you are a bit understandable, we can give an introduction for you to join the Sword Alliance. I guarantee that your future will be bright." Seeing that Chu Feng wasn't as easy to take care as they thought, the three of them wanted to rope Chu Feng into their own alliance. Chu Feng didn't react as he listened to those words, but Chu Shue instantly got more nervous. She and Chu Feng had deep history, and Chu Feng didn't really even have any reason to help her. Now that the Sword Alliance opened such conditions, she was really worried that Chu Feng would put her to the side and abandon her. But she also knew that hoping Chu Feng would protect was beyond reason. However, the Chu Feng in front of her was her only hope. "Sword Alliance. I think it's better that it be called as the Beast Alliance. Trash like you want to rope me into your alliance." "Huh?" Chu Feng fiercely spit a mouthful of saliva. "You are forcing this upon us." Seeing that the attempted roping failed and they got humiliated instead, the three of them got angry, and while holding the iron sword, they all started to attack Chu Feng. It was obvious that the three people used their true strength this time. The sword didn't even arrive, yet the wind did. Even Chu Feng had to narrow his eyes and treat this seriously. "What are you looking at? You don't want to leave. Don't affect my evil extermination power." Chu Feng yelled at Chu Shue and the others first. Only then did his body move, and with the waves of the arms, countless invisible palms filled the air and attacked the three people. "It's the illusionary palm, careful." One of them recognized Chu Feng's martial skill, and at the same time that he was shocked, his sword style changed accordingly. A cold glitter surged out, and the three people displayed the exact same techniques and surrounded Chu Feng within it. "Chu Feng." As she saw Chu Feng battling with three experts at the 5th level of the spirit realm, Chu Shue's emotions were extremely complicated. She knew what that meant. It meant that Chu Feng was risking himself for her, and that risk might very well cost him his life. Still not gone. Just as Chu Shue was hesitating, Chu Feng bellowed again, "Miss, let's go." At the same time, the Chu family people also came and dragged Chu Shue into the forest. "Leave me." Chu Shue flung away those people and deeply looked at Chu Feng with meaning. seeing the Chu Feng that was surrounded by afterimages of the swords and doing his best to struggle. Chu Shue gnashed her teeth as if doing a very difficult decision. "Leave," Chu Feng bellowed once again. At that instant, Chu Shui's frail body couldn't help but shake, and 2 sparkling tears fell from the corner of her eyes. After saying a thank you, she went back into the forest. "Brat, you dare interrupt my good occasion. I will cripple you today." Seeing the fat meat that was right in front of their mouth escaping, the 3 of them burned with anger. The points of their swords were aimed at critical body points, and they wanted to kill Chu Feng. "It'll depend on your strength." Although Chu Feng's face showed that he was holding on, he also felt the pressure. Against 3 people who were a whole level above him really strained him. Those 3 people, although they were not extraordinary people, not only was the sword in their hands strong, the martial skills that they cultivated made it so that the sharp weapon in their hands was used to the extreme. In addition, with them 3 combining their powers, Chu Feng had quite some difficulty going against them. The most important thing was that Chu Feng didn't want to expose his 3 thunder styles, so he decided that he didn't want to mess around with them 3 anymore. Asterisk whoosh whoosh asterisk. Thinking to that point, Chu Feng faked a move, then leaped into the air and jumped out like a lightning out of their 3-man circle. "You 3 trash, try and catch me." After jumping out, Chu Feng taunted them and smiled, then leaped into the forest like a monkey. "Want to escape? Chase." Seeing that Chu Feng was escaping, how could the 3 people let him go? They quickly chased after him, but they still underestimated Chu Feng. Even though they used their spiritual power to the maximum and used all sorts of martial skill, they had no way of chasing up to Chu Feng. There was always a distance between them. "Damn, is this guy the reincarnation of a monkey? How is he so fast? This boy isn't simple. He has so much strength at such an age, and he can even escape from our sword formation. He must have extremely high talent." That's right. This is the first time that I've seen someone using the illusionary palm to this level. If he continues to develop, he would be completely unimaginable. Because of that, we cannot let him leave this place alive, or else he will cause endless troubles. The more the 3 people understood Chu Feng's strength, the colder their heart became. They already slowly decided to kill Chu Feng in the spiritual medicine mountain. "The speed of those 3 are very fast. I can't even get rid of them." At the same time, Chu Feng was speechless from the strength of those 3 people. Although his strength was way higher than the people from the same level, against people who were a whole level higher made him feel a bit weak. But luckily, Chu Feng had plenty of spiritual energy in his dantian. He believed if he continued running, the 3 of them would stop chasing because of their stamina. However, Chu Feng was considering another problem. The power of the Sword Alliance was not small. In the future, after leaving the spiritual medicine mountain, it would be troublesome if those 3 used the power of the Sword Alliance to harm him. That was why Chu Feng was hesitating whether or not to. Don't do it or don't rest. So he was either going to display his 3 thunder styles and silence the 3 people, or he was not going to anything at all. But at the end, he batted that thought away. After all, killing people from the same school was a huge crime, and if any traces were discovered, there might be a chance that the entire Chu family would be affected as well. Asterisk. But just at that time, Chu Feng discovered with astonishment that white rays appeared all around him. Because the sky was already dark when the light rays appeared, they seemed abnormally dazzling, and they were extremely strange. That light became stronger and stronger, and it lit up the forest as though it was day. But what stunned Chu Feng was the countless amounts of white bones that surrounded him. The vast area of white bones were densely piled into the forest. They were as boundless as the ocean. Those bones were very special. Not only were they as clean white as jade, every bone was emitting a heavy aura. Chu Feng felt a choking feeling as he was pressured by countless auras, like those as they were stacked upon one another. His steps became heavy and his entire body lost its strength. What is this place? Chu Feng was very surprised. The special bones were not owned by ordinary people. which meant the owners of the white bones must have been quite a master. Only after reaching a certain realm in cultivation could one die without their bones decaying. Not only were they as white as jade, they still contained a certain amount of pressure to deter other people. There were things that Chu Feng couldn't understand. Not only did he not understand where so many experts came from, as it was beyond common sense to have so many white bones appear. Here, the spiritual medicine mountain was a forbidden land. Virtually every day, the elders would patrol around. How could they leave so many white bones here and not care about them? Other than surprise, Chu Feng was starting to panic. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed that it wasn't right. The more he thought about it, more chills were sent down his spine. After all, he was only a 15-year-old young man. When trapped in such a dark forest area, of course he would feel fear in his heart. That is, suddenly, Chu Feng's eyes lit up. He discovered in shock that there was a silhouette from afar calmly walking within the white bones. He could vaguely see that it was an aged old man. The old man was as clean as snow. He was wearing a blue robe, and on the robe there was the mark of the 8 trigrams. The old man was holding a very strange fly whisk in his right hand. The old man's face was smiling, and he was slowly walking towards Chu Feng's direction. He was not even affected in the slightest by the white bones. But the thing that shocked Chu Feng the most was the old man's skin, which was like jade, and the faint glow that his entire body was emanating. That type of special aura was like a saint descending into the world. Lord, is that from the legends? Just at that time, the 3 people from the Sword Alliance also ran over. However, they had no more thoughts of attacking Chu Feng, as they were completely astonished by the scene in front of their eyes. Compared to Chu Feng's panic, one word was clearly written on the faces of the 3 people. Fear. What kind of place is this? Chu Feng's heart contracted, and just with that name it made him feel uneasy. Damn brat, you've killed all of us. You actually brought us to a place like this. This is a danger spot. That pockmarked male said with a trembling voice. Danger spot. That's right, it's the real danger spot. No, it was a legend. One of the legends of the spiritual medicine mountain. According to legends, there's a that was unreal, unsearchable, and it appeared in the spiritual medicine mountain at unscheduled times. But this place is really the absolute danger spot. The legends say that those who step into this place will not leave alive. Even the people who kept their lives would become insane. I never would have thought that the scary legend was true. We've stepped into The other 2 were also extremely afraid. As they spoke, some words were nonsense, and it showed how fearful they were in their hearts. If I may ask, is this really Chu Feng cast his gaze towards that mysterious old man who was holding a fly whisk. Although he couldn't feel anything from the old man's body, just by looking at his exterior, Chu Feng could tell that he was extraordinary. Without a doubt, he must be some big shot in the Azure Dragon School. But the thing that confused him was that the old man was obviously looking at him. Yet he didn't even open his mouth to speak. Rather, with the corners of his mouth, they formed a strange smile. Oi, who are you talking to? Damn brat, don't try to deceive us. But the unexpected thing was that after listening to Chu Feng's call to the old man, the faces of the 3 Sword Alliance members instantly paled without a single trace of color. Can't you see that I'm talking to this person? Chu Feng pointed at the mysterious old man who was standing nearby. What person? You brat, you're really looking to die. That pockmarked male held his sword and wanted to attack Chu Feng. Don't bother with him. Something's wrong with this guy and we should quickly leave this place. But before even letting him attack, the other 2 pulled his shoulders and started to drag him away towards the path in which they came from. Asterisk jijiji asterisk, but just at that time, an ear-piercing noise came from all directions. That noise was very strange, extremely horrifying, and it was as if millions of souls were howling and screaming about injustice. At the same time, Chu Feng found out with shock that on the white bones all around him, dark green gas was floating, and that strange screaming came from the gas. But the thing that made Chu Feng the most uneasy was that the strange, Dark green gas was floating towards Chu Feng and the others. Hurry and run. Seeing that the situation was not good, the Three Sword Alliance members started to escape. *Jijiji*, however, their running didn't matter. The strange gas that filled the air was as though they found their target, and with lightning speed, it flew towards the three people. Shoo! As they faced such strange substances, the three of them started crazily waving their iron sword in their hands, but it was useless towards the gas. It was not affected by it in any way, and at the end, the gas entered their brains. At that instant, the faces of the three people already changed greatly. They threw away the iron swords in their hand, covered their head, then started painfully wailing. Chu Feng could clearly see that their faces went from white to green, from green to purple, and they were kneeling on the ground at first, but then they started rolling around. One could tell that they were suffering from huge waves of pain, but the painful wailing only lasted for a moment. Very quickly, the three of them breathed no more, and with the limp of their legs they died. Their death faces were extremely abnormal. Their faces were swelled, bled from the 7 facial orifices. Their eyes bulged out, and even their hair started to fall. It was as terrifying as it could get. *Jijiji*, but the more terrifying thing to Chu Feng was the strange gas. After the torturous death of the three people, the gas that went into their brains went back out. At the same time, the strange gas from all around started slowly floating towards Chu Feng. Please save me. As he panicked, Chu Feng cast his gaze towards the mysterious old man because he found out that the gas was floating all around except for the area around the old man, which meant, more or less, the mysterious things were afraid of the old man. But not only did Chu Feng's cry of help not gain the sympathy of the old man, it even agitated the strange gas all around him, and at that moment, they attacked Chu Feng with lightning speed. Damn! Seeing that the situation was not good, Chu Feng's body moved and he madly ran towards that old man. He wanted to use the guy to escape the calamity. However, he underestimated the speed of the strange gas. Just after running for a few steps, Chu Feng felt a wave of pain from his brain as if something entered his consciousness and was tearing his brain apart. Quickly after. The pain kept on increasing and Chu Feng already knew that a large amount of the strange gas entered his brain. Those things were like eating his body, and they brought unbearable pain. Under those circumstances, Chu Feng had no way of resisting, and very quickly, he fell to the ground. He started rolling back and forth, just like the Three Sword Alliance members from before, while loudly wailing. As he looked at that scene, the mysterious old man was not moved at all. However, the strange smile that was on his face slowly dimmed down, and replacing it was a disappointed curve. But just at that time, Chu Feng suddenly started snarling. A white ray spread out from his head like a whirlpool and started swirling around it. In an instant, all the strange gas within a circumference of several meters got blown away like dust and smoke. After snarling, Chu Feng laid on the ground without power and went unconscious. But that white ray whirlpool kept on swirling with him as the core. Under the protection of the swirl of light, the strange gas from all around did not dare to get any closer to Chu Feng. Even the ear-piercing noises from before became a lot deeper and lower, as if they were scared. Facing that change, the expression of the mysterious old man changed, and a pleasant surprise surged from both of his eyes. After that, he waved his big sleeve, and a strange wave spread everywhere. All the gas went back into the white bones. When the strange gas disappeared, the swirl of light around Chu Feng's body also slowly went back into Chu Feng's brain. After waiting for almost 1,000 years, I finally met a moldable person. I hope that you don't disappoint me. The old man's body moved, floated in midair, then slowly glided in front of Chu Feng. After that, his fingers extended, and he pointed at Chu Feng's chest. Several firefly-like glowing objects flew out from his fingers and shot into Chu Feng's chest. When those glowing objects went through Chu Feng's clothes and entered his body, the clothes were undamaged, but his chest started to have several dots of glow. The old man silently stared at Chu Feng until the glow disappeared from Chu Feng's chest. Then he slowly closed his eyes. Suddenly, with the old man in the middle, a fierce dark green hurricane started swirling around, and the hurricane had dots of essence which contained incomparable, terrifying pressure. Instantly, it engulfed the mountain forest. The strange thing was that the hurricane did not rise up into the air. Rather, it started going down into the ground. Finally, it went deep into the soil, and the vast white bones also disappeared. After the violent hurricane, all the flowers, grass and trees in the forest were not changed in any way, and the night sky also covered the land again. The only change was the fainted Chu Feng and the 3 dead members of the Sword Alliance. A gentle wind passed and brought slight bits of chill. That chill also made Chu Feng recover his senses as he slowly opened his eyes. What happened? Was I dreaming? Chu Feng sat up, and while he massaged his aching head, he scanned around. He found out that the scary scene from before completely disappeared, and it made him feel that the previous experience was only a dream. This isn't right. When Chu Feng's gaze landed on the 3 Sword Alliance members, he suddenly stood up. As he looked at the horrifying death conditions, he knew that the previous events really did happen. That's too scary. Why is there such a strange place in this spiritual medicine mountain? 1,000 Bone Graveyard. Where did that come from? Who is that mysterious old man? Chu Feng was completely shocked. Everything that happened up to this point was unimaginable, because everything that happened already exceeded his bearable range. *****. Just at that time, Chu Feng suddenly heard the sound of footsteps, and he knew that people were coming close. Looking at the situation, Chu Feng turned around and escaped deeper into the forest. He needed to leave because he could not let people know that he was connected to the 3 Sword Alliance members, or else he would have no way of explaining it. He couldn't say that they entered the 1,000 Bone Graveyard from the legends, and then the 3 got killed while he was not even scratched right. It was too strange, and even if he told people, no one would believe it. Even if people did believe it, Chu Feng would become a strange person in the Azure Dragon School, so he needed remove all connections. As Chu Feng ran, he quickly found out that something was different about him. He felt that his senses were extremely clear. Even the grass moving from the wind was detectable by him. He never had that feeling before. Is my head so sensitive because there is too much spiritual energy in this spiritual medicine mountain combined with the silence of the night? Chu Feng tried to find out why he had better senses, but he suddenly stopped his footsteps. Instantly, both of his eyes lit up, and a surprised look emerged from his face. He felt a strange energy moving, and although it was still fairly far, he could confirm that it was a sky spirit grass. I'm not imagining this, am I? Chu Feng was shocked to be able to feel where the spiritual grass was located at, and of course, Chu Feng knew what that meant. If that feeling was real, it meant that in the spiritual medicine mountain, he was like a fish in water. Whoosh thinking to that point, Chu Feng did not hesitate and walked towards the direction in which he felt something from. He wanted to completely investigate it. As he got closer, Chu Feng got more happy because the movements of the sky spirit grass in his brain was getting stronger and stronger, which more or less meant that his feeling was not an illusion. When Chu Feng passed another bush, he saw a red plant in front of him. It was the sky spirit grass. The sky spirit grass was quite a bit better than the ground spirit grass. The red branches and trunk emitted a red glow, and it looked like it was on fire. It seemed especially beautiful during the night. Little thing, after toying around with me for a whole day, I'll see if you can escape me this time. As he saw the sky spirit grass, Chu Feng did not stop and instantly rushed forward. He concentrated his spiritual energy at the bottom of his feet, and his speed doubled in an instant. Within a blink, he arrived in front of the sky spirit grass. But before Chu Feng even extended his hands, that sky spirit grass disappeared and was not to be seen. You want to run, but can you? Seeing that the sky spirit grass wanted to escape by invisibility, Chu Feng formed a cold smile on the corner of his mouth. He stepped forward, grabbed the air in front of him, and then he heard a sharp cry. One sky spirit grass was grasped within Chu Feng's hands. When the sky spirit grass was caught by Chu Feng, it instantly lost its invisibility and started to madly struggle. The power of it was several times stronger than the ground spirit grass, but it was useless as it was in Chu Feng's hands. At the end, it could only obediently lose its spiritual nature and become a half-inch red-colored spiritual grass that laid in Chu Feng's palm. It seems that this is certainly not an illusion. Chu Feng threw the sky spirit grass into the bag, and he was insanely happy in his heart. Although he didn't know where the special sense came from, to Chu Feng, he could rely on it strongly. But with a thought, it was not hard for Chu Feng to think where the power came from. After all, it was formed after he entered the 1,000-bone graveyard, and the target of the strange gas was the brain, which meant it was logical even if it was the attack of the strange gas that made Chu Feng's senses stronger. Another thing dropped right at my doorstep. Just at that time, his eyes lit up once again. Another sky spirit grass entered his detection range. Under such a strong detection power, virtually no sky spirit grass was able to escape Chu Feng's hands. Any escaping methods were wasted efforts. Chu Feng did not sleep for the entire night, and when it was day, he already caught dozens of sky spirit grasses. A harvest like that would certainly make people go crazy. If someone found out about it, even robbing Chu Feng was a possibility. After all, within the spiritual medicine mountain, the number of battles and thievery between disciples were not few. However, Chu Feng's detection power was not only limited to sky spirit grasses. Even if a human entered a certain range, they would be detected by Chu Feng, so almost no one could find traces of Chu Feng. Another day passed, and when the night arrived, Chu Feng's bag was almost already full. This time, Chu Feng did not continue hunting, and he found a hidden place to start refining the sky spirit grasses. Chu Feng's refining speed was top class, and after only 4 hours, the bag that was full of sky spirit grasses were completely refined by him. With that, his dantian also got more and more full. That made Chu Feng joyful, and although the sky spirit grass was not comparable to the saint spirit grass, if he had this amount every day to refine, he could break through within 10 days. From that day forth, Chu Feng spent all day in the middle circle of the spiritual medicine mountain and hunted sky spirit grasses without restraint until deep into the night. He refined all the sky spirit grasses that he hunted that day. Then after resting for 4 hours, he continued to hunt insanely. It cycled like such, and after 9 days from the time in which Chu Feng entered the spiritual medicine mountain, he felt a great change in his dantian. The 9 lightning beasts changed once again, and Chu Feng finally broke through the 4th level of the spirit realm into the 5th. With this power, I should be able to battle against people that are on the 6th level of the spirit realm. Feeling the strength that was improving many times, Chu Feng was speechless himself. Him who had the divine lightning really had power that was way stronger than others, especially his 3 thunder styles. If he used it, even experts at the 6th level of the spirit realm could not defeat him. Level crossing battles were already defying common sense. Although the geniuses who had extremely high talent could do it, those were geniuses. If those things happened on a person people knew, everyone would be shocked. After raising his power, Chu Feng went hunting for sky spirit grasses again. This time it was a lot easier. With merely half a day, he already filled up his bag. Since the bag of rations was almost empty, that bag also became Chu Feng's tool for storing spiritual medicine. However, the current Chu Feng was not only thinking about sky spirit grasses. He wanted to head towards the inner circle, and he wanted to check the saint spirit grasses that were rumored to be no weaker than a rank 6 fierce beast. This aura. But before entering the inner circle for long, Chu Feng felt 2 types of auras, and they were both extremely strong. The first one were the spiritual medicines. The densely filled, evil aura was obviously from the saint spirit grasses that had spiritual natures. There were a lot of them, almost 100. The other aura was from a human. It was also extremely large, so it should be an expert of the 7th level of the spirit realm. At that moment, the two auras were blended together. It was obvious that the person was having a great battle with the Saint Spirit grasses, but that person's aura was not stable, so they must have entered a trap. Who dared to challenge so many Saint Spirit grasses by themselves? With a heart of curiosity, Chu Feng decided to observe the outcome. When he leaped over the layers of trees, he was stunned by the scene in a distance. A 3-meter-tall huge plant, filled with purple thorns, had its mouth open, which was full of teeth. It was emitting an oppressing aura from its body, and it didn't even look like a Saint Spirit grass. It looked more like a monster. However, rather than the scary Saint Spirit grasses, Chu Feng's gaze concentrated on the petite figure, because that figure not only went through the formation of near 100 Saint Spirit grass, it was a beauty that matched her name. That elegant long hair, that delicate face, that snow-white skin, those eyes that were not fearful in front of danger and were instead unyielding, deeply attracted Chu Feng. That girl was undoubtedly the most beautiful person Chu Feng ever saw. But the reason why Chu Feng was attracted to her was not only because of her appearance, it was also the power that she had at her age. Careful below. Suddenly, Chu Feng yelled loudly because he felt that a Saint Spirit grass was hidden under the feet of the girl. What? The girl didn't even notice Chu Feng, so after hearing such an unexpected yell surprised her. She subconsciously tapped the ground with both her feet and leaped into the air. In the instant that she left the ground, a huge Saint Spirit grass drilled out from the ground with its fangs and claws bared. That unforeseen event created lingering fear in that girl. If it wasn't for the reminder of that voice, she would have certainly had paid a huge cost. With gratitude in her heart, she cast her gaze towards Chu Feng. But when she saw Chu Feng, her delicate face instantly froze and she said with shock, "It's you. You know me." Chu Feng carefully evaluated that beautiful girl, and after looking up and down 3 times, he found out that not only was the girl beautiful, she was also very young, obviously being younger than him. Also, there was a badge on the chest of the girl that showed that she was a member of the Wings Alliance. Although that girl shocked Chu Feng, he really did not recognize the girl. "Who knows you? Hurry up and leave, this isn't a place where you can come." The girl glanced at Chu Feng, then continued to throw herself into the huge battle against the Saint Spirit grasses, and it seemed that she was extremely angry at Chu Feng. Although Chu Feng did not know why the girl was so angry, Chu Feng already knew that the girl was surrounded by the Saint Spirit grasses. She wanted to escape, but she did not have that chance. If that continued, the girl would not able to continue because of her physical strength, and she would die there. As a man, how could Chu Feng let such a beautiful girl be eaten by those monsters? He could not ignore something like that. So while thinking about that, Chu Feng jumped in without hesitation. But just as he entered, he regretted it a bit. A large amount of monsters felt his presence and started attacking straight at him. "It seems that I have to go all out." Life was hung by a thread, so Chu Feng didn't hold back anymore. The spiritual energy in his dantian started to move, and it went along the veins. The top of his toes touched the ground, and with a boom, his entire body leaped into the air like lightning. As he was landing, Chu Feng suddenly started spinning. A whirlwind started to rise, and his entire body was like a human blade as it fiercely thrust into the 100 of flowers underneath. Asterisk bang asterisk. As he was landing, the flowers scattered. The moment he landed, the ground formed a deep hole with cracks all around it. One Saint Spirit grass was killed on scene by Chu Feng and became as big as his finger. He displayed the first 2 styles of the 3 thunder styles, yet he only killed one Saint Spirit grass. That was unexpected to Chu Feng. After all, it was his strongest trump card. He thought that with those attacks, the sky would be frightened and the ground would sob, and a large number of Saint Spirit grasses would die under his feet. But the result in his eyes had too much of a difference from his imagination. However, Chu Feng didn't think too much about that. Almost at the same time that he landed, he suddenly jumped up again because he felt that there were at least 3 Saint Spirit grasses that attacked from behind. Do you want to die? Feeling the change in the Saint Spirit grass attack formation and the wailing sounds from nearby, the girl knew that Chu Feng jumped in. But when she cast her gaze towards Chu Feng's direction, she couldn't help but be astonished. No matter what she thought, she never would have guessed that Chu Feng could come and go as he wished within the army of Saint Spirit grasses that even she was fearful of. Even without seeing the attacks of the Saint Spirit grass, he could still accurately dodge and attack. Although she did not recognize the skills that Chu Feng used, she could still tell from the power that it was at least a rank 4 skill. This guy, he just entered the 5th level of the spirit realm, and he can already use rank 4 skills. The girl was deeply attracted towards Chu Feng's performance. Careful on the left. Just as the girl was in a daze, Chu Feng suddenly yelled. Hearing that, the girl was suddenly alarmed and quickly turned her body. With one palm, she grabbed her left and grabbed onto the thorny vine. After grabbing on the vines, the girl clenched with her fist and broke the vines into pieces. Another palm swept out like a blade, and with a cold flash, she chopped the Saint Spirit grass into 2. It wasn't even like a palm. It was more like an iron blade. After accurately chopping the Saint Spirit grass, the girl was even more shocked. Chu Feng was clearly facing her with his back, so how could he see that there was a Saint Spirit grass attacking on his left? Unless, whoosh asterisk. Just at that time, Chu Feng brushed next to the girl like lightning. At that moment, he was covered with sweat, and bloodstains also appeared on his clothes. The Saint Spirit grasses were too strong, and there were too many of them. Although Chu Feng had the strong detection power and his incomparably strong 3 thunder styles, the him who was in the 5th level of the spirit realm was a bit weak towards them. Oi, if you want to get out alive, listen to my instructions. Chu Feng said to the girl, you want me to listen to you? In your dreams, the girl was extremely displeased. Say, are you even making sense? I came in here to save you, and this is how you treat me. Also, didn't you notice that these Saint Spirit grasses are a bit strange? They don't attack blindly and they have a strict coordination. If you're going to go head-on with them, you will only get tired. Rubbish. That's obvious. I already knew that. Although she said that on the surface, in her heart she just understood that. If it wasn't for Chu Feng's reminder, she really wouldn't have noticed that. With her strength, killing Saint Spirit grasses was not hard, but it was obvious that she was helpless against this crowd of Saint Spirit grasses. There were very small chances of a straight-up confrontation, and she always needed to dodge the attacks from them. It's fine if you don't want to listen, since I can leave this place alive. Chu Feng coldly snorted and prepared to leave. I don't. Seeing that Chu Feng was leaving, that terrified the girl. She already saw Chu Feng's ability, so she had no doubts that Chu Feng could successfully escape. However, she could not, so she immediately said, I'll listen to you. Heh. Seeing the cute obeying look of the girl, Chu Feng chuckled then, said, that's better. Seeing Chu Feng so proud of himself made the girl's mouth twitch. Although her strength was above Chu Feng, she knew that if she wanted to escape, she needed to rely on Chu Feng. The two of them tried their best to coordinate, and under Chu Feng's command, the strength of the girl was truly exhibited. The near 100 Saint Spirit grasses were completely annihilated by the two people, with only an hour. After the huge battle, Chu Feng started cleaning up the battlefield. Of course, he had his part in the Saint Spirit grass that filled the ground. Although the main force was the girl, he was the main brains. Did this guy train in the mysterious techniques? Seeing the Chu Feng that was happily picking up the Saint Spirit grasses, the coarsely breathing girl, who was sitting on the side, started muttering. At first, for self-protection, Chu Feng was continuously using rank 4 skills. Although rank 4 skills were strong, they consumed a lot of spiritual energy. Most people could only use it a few times before they exhausted their spiritual energy. However, after using it for so long, Chu Feng didn't even have any feeling of exhaustion. In addition, being able to use his 5th level of the spirit realm power to defeat the Saint Spirit grass, that was equivalent to a rank 6 fierce beast, indicated a problem. It was that Chu Feng might have trained in the mysterious techniques. Mysterious techniques. They were mysterious techniques. Cultivators were able to gather more spiritual energy, refine spiritual medicine quicker, causing the spiritual energy in the Danshan to be more rich, and the battle abilities were several times stronger than normal people. But there were very little mysterious techniques, and even the Azure Dragon School only had a few. They were only provided to the core disciples for cultivation, and inner court disciples had no way of even touching them. Chu Feng, being able to cultivate in the precious mysterious techniques, naturally made the girl see Chu Feng in another light. However, she didn't know the reason why Chu Feng's spiritual energy was so strong wasn't because of some mysterious technique. It was because of the divine lightning in his Danshan. It seems that not only is your spirit power impressive, you have plenty of spiritual energy as well. The girl stood up and walked over to Chu Feng with both of her hands behind her back. What spirit power? Chu Feng stared blankly, still playing dumb. If you didn't have the spirit power, how could you clearly see the attack of the Saint Spirit grasses? The girl looked blankly back at Chu Feng. You're talking about my detection power. Chu Feng was startled as he knew what the girl meant. Detection power. My gods, you call the spirit power the detection power. You really are a bumpkin. The girl's gaze towards Chu Feng became more and more disdainful. It's normal to not know. Would you know if you were male or female when you were born? Chu Feng coldly snorted and continued to pick up the Saint Spirit. Grasses all around them. Oh, your temper is quite short. The girl sweetly smiled, caught up to him, then chuckled. Did you know that not even 1 person out of 10,000 have the spirit power? You seem to really understand this spirit power. Chu Feng's heart tightened. He just started using the so-called spirit power, so he didn't understand it too much. But he also knew that it was likely true when the girl said there weren't even one within 10,000 that had the spirit power. It was very obvious that this extremely talented girl didn't have it. In addition, her treatment towards him turned 180 degrees, showing that this spirit power was quite an impressive thing which ordinary people did not have. But of course, the spirit power is the favor of the heavens. It is brought by nature and unobtainable by cultivation. Those who have spirit power can be said to be a dragon within men. Not only would their cultivating talent be extremely strong, their observation would be unrivaled. No wonder my elder sister looked at you and asked our Wings Alliance to invite you. Your elder sister. I forgot about the self-introductions. I am called Su Mei, 14 years old. And you certainly know my elder sister. She is called Su Ro. You are elder Su Ro's sister. Chu Feng did not expect that. The girl in front of him was pure and sweet, but that Su Ro was extremely charming. Although the two of them were very beautiful women, they were not similar. But after some more precise looking, Chu Feng found out that the girl in front of him looked a tiny bit like Su Ro. Right now, the girl was still a bit young, but in a few years she would certainly be a stunning beauty. What surprised Chu Feng was that he was not related to Su Ro in any way. So why did Su Ro try to pull him into the Wings Alliance for no reason? Was it that his strength was already exposed on the day of the exam? After some more careful thing, there was that possibility. After all, Su Ro's strength was unmeasurably deep, and there were layers of mechanisms in the underground palace. He may have been able to deceive the disciples, but to deceive the elders would really have quite some difficulty. Is it so surprising? But there's actually nothing that's surprising. My sister saw that you were a talented person, so she wanted to develop you a bit. From my observations, you do have the qualifications to join the Wings Alliance. As one of the members of the Wings Alliance, I hereby officially invite you to join. Speaking to that point, Su Mei squinted her eyes and gave Chu Feng an incomparably sweet, clean, pure smile. At first, Su Mei extremely disliked Chu Feng, and the reason was obviously because Chu Feng refused the invitation of the Wings Alliance. Chu Feng was the first ever person in history to refuse the invitation of the Wings Alliance. But knowing that Chu Feng had the extremely rare spirit power, she also knew that the place that Su Ro had her eyes on were naturally the spirit power. From what she knew, in the entire outer court, Not one person had the spirit power, and it was just like a legend. In short, any person that had the spirit power would have unlimited accomplishments in the future, and were destined to be an extremely strong person. So to a person like Chu Feng, she obviously could not let him go and did everything she could to attract him. Seeing Su Mei's sweet smile, Chu Feng knew that the girl wanted to pull him in the alliance with her looks. It was impossible for Chu Feng's heart to not be moved in front of such a beauty, so he smiled at first, but then firmly said, "I refuse, you bastard." Hearing Chu Feng's words, Su Mei was so angry that she jumped up. The previous gentleness instantly disappeared, and she bit her teeth in anger while pointing at Chu Feng while angrily saying, "Chu Feng, who do you think you are? How many people wish to join in the Wings Alliance yet are refused by us? Today, I personally invite you, yet you still refused. Is your brain wedged by a door? So what if you have the spirit power? At the end, you're just at the 5th level of the spirit realm. It's not even comparable to the people in the Wings Alliance." Facing Su Mei's fierce cursing, Chu Feng did not get agitated nor angry and completely ignored her. He continued picking the Saint Spirit grasses on the floor, and the ones he could pick up he did. Suddenly, he had a blank look. He discovered with astonishment at a not-so-distant place, a purple bead appeared. That bead was the same size as a pearl, but it contained extremely strong spiritual energy. "What's this?" Chu Feng picked up the bead and carefully assessed it. "What is it?" "It's a spiritual bead." Seeing that purple shiny bead, Su Mei hurriedly ran over and her eyes were lit up. "You recognize this thing?" Chu Feng asked curiously. "Of course I do. It's the top quality spiritual medicine, the spiritual bead. From several hundred Saint Spirit grasses, only one would form into a spiritual bead. You cannot refine the spiritual bead, but if you directly swallow it, it would form into spiritual energy and be absorbed by the Danshan. That's why the spiritual bead is extremely precious. The price of one of them is equivalent to 100 taels of gold. I've been wandering around the inner circle of the spiritual medicine mountain for all these days just for this spiritual bead. I never would have thought that I would get it before leaving. I'm too fortunate," Su Mei said emotionally. "So this thing is a top-quality spiritual medicine that doesn't require refining. It is indeed a good thing." Chu Feng chuckled and didn't put the bead in the bag. Rather, he put it in his own pocket. "You want to keep it to yourself?" Seeing that, Su Mei angrily yelled, "Of course not. In a while, I'll give you a few more Saint Spirit grasses. These Saint Spirit grasses were originally mine, and it's already pretty good that I'm willing to give you half. In any case, the Saint Spirit grass are only high-quality spiritual medicine. How could they even compare to the top-quality spiritual bead? You can't say it like that. If it wasn't for me, then you would have already been divided into two by those Saint Spirit grasses. How could you even be standing here and be dividing these Saint Spirit grasses with me? You." Su Mei tightly bit her teeth in anger, yet she was helpless. Although Chu Feng's actions were very scoundrelly, she still wanted to get Chu Feng into the Wings Alliance, so she could only endure. After that, Chu Feng counted a bit, and except for the spiritual bead in his pocket, he gathered a total of 78 Saint Spirit grasses. It was absolutely an unimaginable number. Also, the spiritual energy contained in these Saint Spirit grasses were very rich. They were very high quality, and they were a lot better than the ones Chu Feng refined before. Chu Feng only took 30 and left 48 for Su Mei. He could feel that the spiritual energy in his pocket were equivalent to at least 50 Saint Spirit grasses. So even if it was divided up like this, he still gained a lot. But Chu Feng did not expect that Su Mei only took 40, and with that, Chu Feng had 38. Su Mei's meaning was very clear. She was cursing Chu Feng to be 3-8. Tn, 38 is an insult. Chu Feng could only call her actions as childish. Giving up 8 Saint Spirit grasses for cursing was really something a wasteful person would do, as the price of 1 Saint Spirit grass was equal to 1 tael of gold. 1 tael of gold was equal to 100 taels of silver. It was enough for an ordinary family to pass their lives without worries for clothing or food. "Girl, What are you following me for? You didn't fall for me, did you? After dividing the Saint Spirit grasses, Chu Feng decided to leave the spiritual medicine mountain. The 10 days were up, and they needed to leave the inner circle before the sky turned dark. But Chu Feng did not expect that Su Mei would be following him. To be honest, having such a beautiful person that walked with him was a very satisfactory thing. But as they walked, they met a lot of people. When all sorts of gazes of hate were cast towards Chu Feng, he didn't feel easy. He felt that Su Mei was intentionally bringing hatred towards him. I have indeed fallen for you. Do you dare to marry me? But when Su Mei said those words while laughing, Chu Feng was instantly in chaos. Chu Feng never would have thought that the little girl seemed so pure, yet was so unreserved. No matter what you say, she was still a little beauty, so how could she say such things out of nowhere? Marry you? Why wouldn't I dare? But Chu Feng did not back off. He stopped his steps, put his hand under his chin, looked up and down with his eyes, and seriously evaluated the beauty in front of him. Only then did he discover that Su Mei's age may not be big, but her development was quite nice. It really heated people up with her good convexes and her beautiful curves. You dare marry, but I don't. Damn hooligan. Being looked by Chu Feng's scoundrelly gaze, Su Mei could not keep up with that face. She finally discovered that she was too inexperienced in acting shamelessly with Chu Feng, and just with a few words from Chu Feng, she became completely frantic. Oh, that's great if you don't marry. You really aren't my type. Chu Feng faintly smiled, as if a huge burden had been released, and continued walking. You bastard. Su Mei's angry voice came from behind him. To have revenge on Chu Feng, Su Mei did not leave Chu Feng no matter what, and she kept on sticking next to him. As they walked, Chu Feng attracted plenty of enmity. Chu Feng really was helpless against Su Mei's actions. On the topic of power, he was far from Su Mei, and even if he was stronger than Su Mei, there was no need to use fighting to drive the little beauty away, right? Since he was helpless, Chu Feng might as well enjoy it a bit instead. Once in a while he admired Su Mei's looks. Once in a while he provoked her a bit, and that made her angrily stamp like thunder. She grabbed on Chu Feng's arm and bit, madly hammered on Chu Feng's back, and all along the road Chu Feng was quite injured. There were very few people that recognized Su Mei, but with her beauty, she could even be called as #1 in the inner court. Seeing Chu Feng bully a beauty like Su Mei, there were countless of young males that walked up and tried to fight for justice and pull a hero saving the beauty. But what they got was Su Mei's cursing, and there were even 2 people that had their ribs broken by Su Mei. When they saw the Wings Alliance badge on Su Mei's chest, all of them could only curse their luck. The 2 of them continued walking, and all the observers would focus their attention on them. Just like that, they became a strange scene. When they walked to the outer circle, a large amount of people were gathered there, and they became the focus point of people's attention. Look, isn't that Chu Feng? There seems to be a person behind him, isn't that Su Mei? 2 bodies came out of the crowds, and it was the Dragon and Tiger brothers. Those 2 people were very afraid of Su Mei, so they wanted to turn around and escape. Bai Long Bai Hu, help me stop this bastard. But when Su Mei called out to them, they knew that they couldn't escape. Brother, what should we do? Since it's like this, we can only follow up and give that Chu Feng a bit of suffering, or else Su Mei would not forgive us. The 2 of them looked at each other's eyes and remembered Su Mei's orders from all those days ago. They couldn't help but grind their teeth and leap towards Chu Feng's direction, as they wanted to block him. Chu Feng already noticed those 2. And seeing as they were leaping towards him with unkind faces, he knew that they were going to attack him. Indeed, the brothers arrived in front of Chu Feng and stuck out with 1 fist and 1 kick, aiming towards Chu Feng's stomach and leg. Those 2 were in the 6th level of the spirit realm, and although they didn't use any martial skills, their strength and speed were top class. If it was several days ago, Chu Feng would have no way of taking their attacks, but it was no longer hard now. Whoosh Chu Feng did not back off, and he went forward instead. With 1 foot touching the ground, his body suddenly spun and he went between the 2 people like the wind. This aura, spirit realm, 5th level. The brothers felt Chu Feng's aura, but they were surprised because of that. How could he dodge the attacks of the two, while only being in the 5th level of the spirit realm? It did not make any sense. At that instant, the two brothers felt that they had no more face. Even though Chu Feng was a talented person, the two of them were not ordinary either. How could they let a little person, who was only in the 5th level of the spirit realm, toy with them, who were in the 6th level of the spirit realm, in front of all the eyes of the crowd? Thinking to that point, the hearts of those two became colder. They changed their styles, and several palms stuck out at the same time. Countless of wind palms that was visible by the naked eye started flying towards Chu Feng. Those wind palms were densely compacted, and there was almost no way of dodging them. These two guys, seeing that the two of them actually used a rank 3 skill, Chu Feng started to frown. He was already unable to dodge against those skills, so he had to use his own skills to counter. But there were too many observers, so if Chu Feng really used his skills, his true strength would also be exposed. After some thought, Chu Feng bit his teeth and poured the spiritual energy within his body onto his skin. He shifted towards the thinnest wind palms, and he wanted to forcibly take on the attack. Asterisk bang 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 asterisk. After some heavy sounds, Chu Feng got hit by 3 continuous palms. Although a wave of numbing pain came from his back, he did not suffer from any internal injuries, so the dragon and tiger brothers did restrain themselves. But to fake the real, he threw himself forward, and at the same time that he landed on the ground, he intentionally bit his lips and spit out some watery blood. It terrified the brothers as they saw that Chu Feng fell on the ground and even spit out blood. They only wanted to get back some face, and they did indeed restrain themselves. After all, they did not want to anger the person behind Chu Feng. Although they were afraid in their hearts, they saw Su Mei coming up, so the two of them did not lend a hand towards Chu Feng and could only put on a face of evilness, then said while pointing at Chu Feng, "Chu Feng, this is the price of offending." Su Mei, the sister of Elder Su Ro Su Mei. Hearing the name Su Mei shocked the observing crowd. The name Su Mei were not unfamiliar to them, because it was an extremely talented person that everyone knew. It was said that Su Mei was an exceptional beauty and only entered the Azure Dragon School this year. So that was why very few people recognized her. But because Su Mei was extremely talented, being in the 7th level at the age of 14, she was directly accepted as an inner court disciple as an exception. On the same day that she entered the inner court, she entered the Wings Alliance. After comparing Su Mei's appearance and the Wings Alliance badge on her chest, everyone was more certain about her identity. At that moment, the crowd exploded because Su Mei's name was really too well known. "Ah, who's that boy? I see he's dead if he offended Su Mei. I think I heard that the dragon and tiger brothers say that he was Chu Feng. Seeing his face, he should be that idiot. He really must not know how high the sky or how deep the ground is." At that instant, pretty much everyone thought that Chu Feng was dead. Because of Su Ro's existence, Su Mei's position in the inner court was not low. Also, with her beautiful appearance, she already became the spouse of choice for all sorts of geniuses within the inner court. Whoever dared to offend her was looking for death. Su Mei arrived in front of Chu Feng, and as she looked at him, who was slowly climbing back up, and also the pool of watery blood in front of them, her face changed greatly. She suddenly spun around and slapped the dragon and tiger brothers with 2 bangs, then loudly bellowed, "Who let you hit him? Are you looking to die?"